Top of the hour to you, my friends. Stay here, then. Dan I came baby and me we are and you need no guy when Kenya gami. Welcome aboard the AM show across Ghana's 16 regions and all over the world on myjoyonline.com and Joy News on TV on social media. You're listening to me, Sweetie Abochi. And I usually do this with Benjamin Akakpo, but this morning I'm the Soul Ranger. In a bit, I'll be telling you why this morning the AM show is worth waking up for. But I just want to remind you again that if you want something and you never stop chasing it, you will get it. So whether it's freedom you're looking for, fighting for, whether it's to propel the development agenda of this country, let your voice be heard. Anyway, it's about 72 days to the elections, and this morning we'll start with the AM news, where we'll bring you details on everything happening in and around the country. And then we get into our news review segment. Dr. Kwabla Hlovor is member of the NPP communications team, and Bismarck Abobi Ayite is the NDC chairman for Ayawaso West Wogon. Both gentlemen will be joining us to review the newspapers and the stories captured in them. And then we'll turn off AM Sports will come your way after that. Muftana Abdullah will bring you the latest chronicles in the world of sports. And then we will look at our big stories this morning. We'll turn our focus to the sudden resignation of the ECG boss. What does his decision to step down mean for Ghana's energy sector, especially in the face of recent challenges like power distribution issues and rising operational costs? What influenced his choice to bow out at such a critical time? We'll be diving into the implications of this and what really lies ahead for the energy sector. Also, we'll take a look at President Akufo-Addo's final address at the United Nations General Assembly, where he said Ghana is a shining example of good governance on the continent. He said there have been a number of reforms to hold public officials accountable to the people. So we will interrogate these claims, as well as his call for reforms at the UN Security Council. And then we'll continue our engagement with presidential aspirants. Today we have a one-on-one with Ignatius Latte Jr. As election 2024 draws near, like I said earlier, Mr. Ignatius Latte Jr., the presidential candidate of the GCPP, will be sitting down with us to discuss his vision for Ghana. We'll be addressing economic challenges, restoring local industries, and what really his party shares as domestication policy and how it could transform the nation. You want to stay with us from now till 10 a.m. We have some other conversations also coming your way on the AM show. But let's start now with the AM news. I'll be anchoring that myself. Let's get into it. This is the AM News. Let's start now. The minority in Parliament say the power distributors have been shedding load and there is a shortage of more than 500 megawatts of power as of yesterday. Between Tuesday and Wednesday, the ECG has put out several notices of outages in parts of the country, but has attributed the power cuts to routine maintenance. But minority spokesperson on energy, John Jinapor, says the power cuts is actually due to load shedding, attributing the situation to poor management of the power sector.
As we speak today, there is load shedding ongoing. Gridco has been cautioned not to inform customers. Yesterday, there was a deficit of more than 500 megawatts. Today, they are going to shed load, and customers in Ghana will be affected. Tallow Ghana has not been paid even $1 for the past 9 months for gas supply to Ghana Gas, and Tallow is threatening to curtail supply of gas. The IPPs have just dispatched a letter to the Minister of Finance intending to halt supply of power for debt and liabilities hovering around $1.2 billion. It is sad.
The minority say there is currently pressure on the CEO of Ghana Gas to enter into an $800 million gas processing contract. The minority insists such an arrangement must come to Parliament, without which a future NDC government will hold those who put any such contract in force for causing financial loss to the state.
The minority once again has become aware of attempts by the Flagstaff House to compel the chief executive of the Ghana Gas Company Limited to sign a contract for gas processing at a whopping cost of more than $800 million. The initial tender had to do with a company called Phoenix. Surprisingly and strangely, that company has metamorphosized into an SPV, ostensibly to avoid parliamentary scrutiny. But more importantly, as we speak, the government of Ghana and Ghana Gas have not secured a firm commitment on the supply of raw gas for processing by this entity that they want to sign a contract with.
Moving on, Chinese miners, backed by some influential Ghanaian collaborators, have taken over one of Goldfield's old shafts at Takwa, threatening the company's operations. Despite series of warnings, arrests and an injunction from the Takwa High Court prohibiting further development and activation of the mainstream shaft, the Chinese miners and their assigns have laid siege and are solidifying their takeover. Love FM's Erastus Asare-Donko, who has been speaking to sources at Goldfield and assessing the situation, reports there could be conflict and fatalities if the encroachment is allowed to fester. There's more in this report.
Goldfields Ghana Limited acquired Takwa Goldfields Limited in July 1993 and developed a new open pit mine by 1998. In 1999, the company closed down its underground operations and associated shafts, including the Mantrim shaft located within the Brahabebome community. Some indigents of the town are leading Chinese miners in an encroachment and a forced reopening of the shaft. The Mantrim shaft is located few meters from the pit wall to Goldfields' main Tebrebe pit, and there are concerns any occupation of the shaft could lead to fatalities. Experts at the University of Mines and Technology have spelled out the dangers in opening the old shaft for small-scale mining. Here is Dr. Eric Stem, Senior Lecturer and Head of the Department of Environment and Safety, Dr. Shadrach Fosu, Senior Lecturer, Minerals and Material Science, and Dr. Theophilus Joe Asare, Environment and Occupational Health and Safety.
Underground mines, when there is going to be blasting, you have to be able to account for everybody who has gone underground and make sure that they've come to the surface before you do blast. But I think the challenge with most of the small-scale underground mines is that there is really no proper system to account for those who have gone underground. So it's possible that you are doing a blasting, but some people are still underground because they've not been accounted for.
So they start chopping off the pillars that was left by the technical people who designed the underground mining. And then they tend to use wood to support the natural roof. If you look at the strength of the roof and using wood, you can see there is vast difference in terms of structural design, which can lead to collapse.
The ventilation system, which is another key area. So in an underground mine, you have an opening, and there's another opening who become your venting point. They don't know. Most of the community mine, you have 1, 2 pit, or maybe 1 tunnel, and you have 2 community mines. So instead of being entry and exit, one is using this point as an entry. The other community mine is also using the same point as an entry. So ventilation is a very key issue.
Police interventions, series of requests to national security and applications to the Chamber of Mines and the Minerals Commission to help stop the encroachment have failed to yield any results. Reporting for Joy News, Erastus Asare-Donko, Takwa, Western Region.
Other stories, the Electoral Commission is well equipped to deliver free and fair elections. That's according to President Akufo-Addo, who has told the international community at the United Nations headquarters in New York that Ghana's long-standing record of being a beacon of democracy will not be undermined. The president on Wednesday, that's just yesterday, delivered his last address to a gathering of world leaders with a charge to the international community to safeguard the peace and security of West Africa, which is grappling with a surge in unconstitutional takeover of governments.
Peace cannot be imposed from the outside. It must be built from within. African nations must take ownership of their security, and the African Union needs to strengthen itself to be able to respond swiftly to threats. Madam President, as I speak today, ongoing developments in West Africa are deeply troubling. Military coups in Mali, Guinea, Burkina Faso, and Niger threaten the democratic progress we have worked so hard to achieve within the ECOWAS community. These coups are stark reminders that democracy is indeed fragile and must be continually nurtured. In Ghana, however, we will remain resolute in our commitment to democracy. As my presidency draws to a close, I want to assure this Assembly that the upcoming 2024 elections in Ghana will be free, fair, and transparent.
Meanwhile, the president is making a call for reforms in the United Nations Security Council. Known as the most influential organ of the international organization, member states of the United Nations have been at the mercy of the 5 permanent members of the Security Council, which excludes African countries. However, taking his turn to address the 79th United Nations General Assembly, President Akufo-Addo says Africa must be given representation as a Security Council.
Reform is essential to ensure that the Council is more inclusive, democratic, and responsive to the complex challenges we face today. The world has changed, and the Security Council must change with it to maintain its relevance in promoting global peace and security. For years, I've championed the need to reform the Security Council as per the Ezulwini Consensus, the common African position on UN reform, which calls for Africa to have permanent seats on the Council. It is incomprehensible that a continent of 1.4 billion people has no permanent voice in shaping decisions that affect global peace and security. The time for half measures is over. We need a Security Council that is fit for purpose in today's world. It is heartening, however, that finally the demand for reform has found acceptance by leaders of 2 of the 5 permanent members.
Now, NPP flag bearer Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia has revealed plans to launch a groundbreaking credit score system into Ghana's economy next month. He emphasized that this system will make hire purchase arrangements easier and more accessible for consumers, boosting purchasing power across the nation. During his campaign tour of the Asin Central constituency, Dr. Bawumia explained that the Ghana Card and digital address system introduced by the NPP have paved the way for this transformative initiative, aligning Ghana with global financial practices.
Ghana Card. Obia or identity. Yabaya digital address system. Obia or address. Yabaya mobile money interoperability. Obia or bank account. Enti adia here say beya so yabaya credit system no and also Ghana. We have put in place all the pillars. Enti over the last 2 years, ni huejuma to introduce a credit system into Ghana. Yame adom na mikase next year na ebe shares here. But ye ejumano. So yame adom next month I will launch the credit scoring system for Ghana.
Managing Director of ARB Apex Bank, Alex Kwesi Ewa, has disclosed that they have deployed a total of 688 sale-of-points devices aimed at enhancing SUSU or mobile deposited mobilization. He noted that the deployment of these devices has enabled them to implement the necessary controls to reduce cash suppression and associated fraud. He made a statement in a speech read on his behalf at the 40th anniversary of Zonzele Rural Bank PLC at Jirapa. Joy News Upper West Regional Correspondent Rafiq Salam reports from Jirapa.
Zonzele Rural Bank PLC, headquartered at Jirapa, was granted license to operate as a bank by the Bank of Ghana in 1983. It was established with a mission of providing accessible, reliable, customer-centered banking services that foster economic growth and social development. Managing Director of ARB Apex Bank, Alex Kwesi Ewa, in a speech read on his behalf by the head of banking, Mark Odo Ajayi, poured effusive commendations on Zonzele Rural Bank for the slew of customers and the increase of its branches from 1 to 5.
For the past 40 years, Zonzele Rural Bank has achieved impressive growth and milestones, boasting a large and loyal customer base in excess of 16,000 individuals and businesses, including groups. This is no mean achievement. While strategically expanding its branch network to 5 conveniently located branches across this region. Furthermore, the bank has pioneered innovative financial products and services, including 1, a user-friendly mobile banking application, a personalized financial planning tools, countless or contactless payment solutions, eco-friendly investment options.
Technical report they have deployed 688 point-of-sale devices, which will enhance SUSU or mobile deposited mobilization, aimed at reducing cash suppression and associated fraud.
ARB Apex Bank and the rural banks, we have deployed 688 point-of-sale devices to enhance SUSU or mobile deposit mobilization. This has enabled us to implement the necessary controls to reduce cash suppression and associated fraud. We invite all RCDs to join the paradigm shift and leverage these innovative solutions to improve customer experience, drive growth, and promote financial inclusion.
Board Chairman of Zonzele Rural Bank PLC, Michael Hussein, was enumerating the successes chalked by the bank, including the construction of a 3-unit classroom block, looks ahead into the future.
Digital transformation, leveraging technology to improve efficiency, accessibility, and customer engagement. Product innovation, developing tailored solutions for our customers' evolving needs. Community empowerment, expanding our financial inclusion initiatives, and supporting local economic development.
Former Chief Director of the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources and now a Divisional Chief at Tuopare under the Ulo Paramosi, now Professor Bruce Kofi Banoy Yakubu, was paying glowing tribute to the pioneers who laid the foundation for the bank to start, posited that the bank over the years has demonstrated its ability to adapt, innovate, and strive even in the face of challenging times.
From its inception to the present day, the bank has consistently demonstrated its ability to adapt, innovate, and strive even through difficult times, even in the face of the challenging financial services environment as a result of the banking sector cleanup.
Some staff of the bank receive awards for their dedication and commitment to their work. Reporting for Joy News, Rafiq Salam, Jiraba.
let's do some health stories. The pediatric oncology unit at the Komfo-Anokye
The
Teaching
pediatric
Hospital has taken the initiative to raise public awareness about childhood cancers. This comes at the back of late reports of cases by parents from poor households due to fear of costs and misconceptions. There is more in the following report by David Opoku, read to you.
Oncology department at the Komfo-Anokye Teaching Hospital treats around 175 cases of childhood cancers every day. The department is using the month of September to raise awareness about childhood cancers in various public spaces, including streets, marketplaces, and offices. The aim is to rally the public to support the fight against childhood cancer. Head of the unit, Dr. Vivian Paintel, stresses the importance of parents sending their children to the hospital promptly for cancer treatment.
Myth about childhood cancers. Some people think that childhood cancers are not curable. Okay, but what we know is that if children with cancers are seen early, about 80% of them can be cured. When we cure them, that means as a child, if you are cured by 3 years of age, 4 years of age, you have the rest of your life ahead of you for you to live. And so that is why we are making the noise today, going around to tell people that children do get cancer, and when they do, when we all join our hands together, we can be able to fight them, because one person can't fight cancer because of the cost and all that involved. So all of us, it takes a whole village, it takes a whole city, it takes a whole nation. So all of us are needed for us to be able to fight cancer.
Dr. Paintel entreated individuals and organizations to join initiatives for childhood cancer.
And I would say the situation is dire. It is better than it used to be, but still there is still more room for improvement. And all of us, corporate bodies, NGOs, individuals need to come together. Those who are rock stars, who sing, they are the ones who currently have lots of money. Footballers, everybody can come around. You can possibly adopt one child who can't afford treatment. You can adopt that child so that that child can be cured of their cancers.
Board chairman of the National Health Insurance Authority, Dr. Ernest Kwaku, said the NIA is implementing programs to address childhood cancers. He says the goal is to improve early detection and ensure effective treatment for affected children.
It's a pleasure to have you join us for the walk. This is something we have been doing to raise awareness about childhood cancer, especially to tell the general public about how to be able to tell early signs and symptoms so that they will bring the children early for us to treat them. Fortunately, there are a lot of specialists that have been trained to give prompt care once the children are brought. And also another bit about the care that is taken care of now, at least for 4 of them, is that the financial access barrier has been broken. We at the National Health Insurance have brought these 4 onto the benefit package so that with early detection and prompt action by all the specialists around, then with financing, children can be cured. The benefit package we have offered is what the specialists have told us to offer. Of course, there are a few things that are out of the range of the benefit package, including some investigations. But at least the 4 that are being covered, you will have treatment costs up to the end of the treatment.
David Opoku's reports for Joy News.
For our first story in the business updates, the Liquefied Petroleum Gas Marketers Association is warning of a looming shortage of LPG supply this weekend if the Tema oil refinery does not swiftly address the challenge. Already, parts of Accra and Tema Metropolis have been hit by LPG supply shortage owing to what some industry players say are supply issues with toll. Although management of Tema Oil Refinery have disclosed to Joy Business that the issues have been resolved and will normalize soon, the LPG marketers maintain the issue must be addressed immediately before it escalates. Gabriel Kumi is the Vice President of the LPG Marketers Association.
But we understand there were some meetings going on. And if that has been resolved, then by tomorrow, early tomorrow morning, we expect that when we place orders with these BDCs, they should be able to honor the orders so that we can give consumers some relief. Because today we could see people struggling to get LPG, and that is not good at all. And tomorrow is Thursday, we'll be running into the weekend. So if this problem is not resolved today, by tomorrow morning, then it means into the weekend we are likely to have some serious shortage of that. Yes, tomorrow if you can let your reporters check from the LPG retail outlets, you could see that as I indicated, about 60-70% of us had run out of LPG as a close of today. And this is going to put a lot more pressure on the 30-40% that has the product. So if we don't get supply into the system by close of tomorrow, then by close of tomorrow, we expect that the shortage will rise to about 80-90%. And by Friday, the whole system will be dried up.
And
Stakeholders in the e-commerce industry bemoan the poor connectivity in certain parts of the country as hindrance to the growth of the e-commerce sector. The sector, which is valued at over 900 million cedis, also plays a pivotal role in actualizing the African Continental Free Trade Area. Speaking with Joy Business at the 3rd National E-Commerce Forum and Exhibition, Emmanuel Mumuni, Component Manager at GIZ, noted that reliable connectivity to remote parts of the country will expand reach and promote inclusion.
There are lots of people that are still not part of this digital transformation that we're talking about. And that's just a market that we are leaving out because if people are living in peri-urban or rural areas and don't have any connectivity, it's a market that it's not buying online. And the more we integrate them, the more we include them, it becomes another market segment that people selling online can attract or can sell to. And so we're working a lot with World Bank, with the ministry, to expand accessibility. So the Ghana Investment Fund for Electronic Communication is doing a lot, installing telecommunication masts in various rural communities that they can have basic internet connectivity, and that would improve e-commerce as well. So we have a startup that we are supporting, and they were scaling into Nigeria, and they talked a lot about the size of the Nigerian market. And they had a lot of investments as well. But they started their business in Nigeria, and the kind of traction that they were expecting with the numbers that they were quoting at the beginning wasn't the reaction that they had. And the further research that they did was clear that the literacy rate and the connectivity in Nigeria is what is limiting them in terms of the numbers that they could do, because you can say, yeah, Nigeria is more than 200 million, but how many of them are included in the digital space? How many of them are digitally literate to even buy and sell online? And those are the issues that we have in Ghana as well, that we need to take that seriously.
And this ends the AM News Bulletin on the AM Show. Now the conversations begin, starting with the news review segment. And my guests will be joining me shortly, so don't miss it. We'll be right back. And we are on air and we're live for the news review segment. And my guest joining me in the studio this morning is Dr. Ajekum. He's a member of the NPP communications team. The last time you mentioned that they said your name is hyphenated.
Yeah, Ajekum Obeng.
Ajekum Obeng, yeah, lawyer Ajekum Obeng. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, City.
Okay, so let's get right into it. In the course of the conversation, we'll introduce our second guest as and when he gets here. But you have your 2 minutes to walk us through what's top of your mind.
What's top of my mind this morning is the road reconstruction from the Ofankor to Sawam stretch. And parts have been opened to traffic. And you see the nature of the road, and it speaks to the improvements we are making in the infrastructure sector. The fact that we are seeing massive improvements to ease traffic, to reduce carbon and smoke emission, and its effect on the environment, and how it's going to help with activities in terms of movement of goods and services. The road linking Accra to Kumasi is a major road, and those who come from Burkina and Niger and clear their goods through Ghana, they ply that road. So it's a huge commercial road, and we say kudos to government for taking such initiative. So we plead with those using that stretch of the road that's the parts that are yet to be completed. You should at least kindly bear with the contractor and those who use the roads, the humans that use the roads as well, to at least make sure that we don't overspeed or drive, in quote unquote, carelessly on the stretch.
Right. You said you were reducing carbon emissions. I just wanted clarity on how you're achieving that.
Okay. So you know how long you transit through traffic, points to how much emission you release into the atmosphere. So if you check our country, our peak periods of carbon emission from our vehicles are the mornings, the rush hours, and people are going to work, and the evenings when we close. And it's because of the nature of our roads and the heavy vehicular traffic that we usually encounter. So when you open up the roads, you are constructing more road, more wider roads, dual carriage, triple carriage, whatever. It means you are reducing the amount of time people spend in traffic, vis-a-vis how much emissions we produce to contaminate the atmosphere.
Okay. Yeah. Let's get into our newspapers. I'll start, and I have the Daily Graphic. First, I'll take you through all the stories on the front page. Students Loan Trust Fund disburses 20 million cedis to students. On promoting inclusive governance, winner-takes-all system must stop, experts advocate. 32 journalists, media houses nominated for awards. And President Akufo-Addo at the UN General Assembly, and he says Security Council needs overhaul, structure deficient in addressing global challenges. We just brought you that story this morning on how there's no representation for the African continent on that council. And let's get into it. World Tourism Day on the theme Tourism and Peace. I want to start with a story from right here on the president, some of his submissions and that's his last address actually to the UN Council. So President Akufo-Addo has reiterated his call for an urgent overhaul of the United Nations Security Council, describing its current structure as outdated and representative and insufficient to address the global challenges of today's world. And speaking at the 79th session of the UN General Assembly in New York, in the United States of America, the Ghanaian leader, emphasized the need for inclusivity and fairness within the council, arguing that the existing framework was no longer fit for purpose. What is your take on this matter? I mean, obviously, the president's call is a good one because this is a United Nations Security Council, and if there's no African representation there, then there's a deficit. But it's for your reflection.
It speaks to how Africa has been treated, when it comes to the global bodies. We have huge population in terms of numbers. We have huge resources in terms of natural resources. If you look at the demography of the African population, the population is very youthful. So in terms of work outputs, Africa is ranked one of the highest in terms of work outputs and in terms of resource mobilization. Yeah. If you look at the world's superpowers.
Both human and
natural resources. So if you look at the world's superpowers, everyone is almost trying to pitch camp with one African country or the other. Especially for territorial protection and allies and in terms of trade and all that. So if the world has grown up to this level, there's globalization, and there is huge transfer of knowledge, work across continents, work across countries. And we've come to the level where we are all coexisting in one ecosystem. Then it's just prudent that the African continent that contributes so much in terms of human and natural resources gets right representation. It speaks to how much it's skewed in terms of who has what to say and who has what power when it comes to decision making. Okay. Looking at how the African has evolved and the continent has also evolved in terms of democracy and in terms of multi-party system, and the few security unrest across some of the African countries. I believe it's about time the world took a second look at Africa's stance on global issues and the representation thereof. So yes, kudos to the president, and I believe all ASEAN countries leadership who had the opportunity to address the UN would also speak same. It's an advocacy. We might not see the effects here and now, but if we keep advocating, if we keep speaking to it. I believe some reforms will be made, and Africa, sooner than later, would have its fair.
That's how we achieve anything at all. Agenda setting. You keep drumming home your needs. You keep, making your voice be heard. You keep demanding. You just persevere till the right thing is done. Let me run through the stories here before I get to the story on the Electoral Commission. So, Nigerian soldier dismissed after alleging rape hits out. Burkina Faso foils attempted coup. AU concern over Sudan's deteriorating security, and we're just talking about security. In fact, I remember a conversation I had with the Information Minister, Fatimatu Abubakar, and she said that sometimes it appears the government is prioritizing things that are not important to the populace or the electorate at the moment, but in terms of security, this government has prioritized security. And they will choose that, securing our borders because of the, pockets of violence surrounding us over things like maybe, I don't want to speculate, but the question was in relation to the National Cathedral and how it appears we're pumping money into that pit that we see now, and how it appears it's important to governments, but these are not some of the things that we want. And her response was that some of the things that government prioritizes, like security, we may not see the effect right now, but in the long term, we'll see that. And this is not in any way to bring her into the conversation. So human rights response to Galamsey, and I want to read just a bit of that. The fight to eliminate Galamsey has been long, difficult, and protracted. As far back as 1989, the Small Scale Mining Act, whose main aim was to legalize artisanal mining and prevent illegal mining activities, was enacted. I think this is an editorial talking about human rights response to Galamsey. You can pick a copy for yourself. But the story I wanted to get to is here. Let us do the right thing with voter register to preserve gains of democracy. And this is by Professor Emeritus Stephen Adey. And he's a compatriot, and he's saying that it concerns the National Democratic Congress demands regarding the credibility of the voter register, which has already engendered, thank God, a peaceful demonstration of September 17, 2024. He says he writes as a citizen who is not an expert in law, elections, or politics in general, but one who thinks we must insist that constitutional and legal processes are not compromised. From the Constitution, some legal documents, and the Electoral Commission itself, I have learned the following important facts. And then he goes on to list the issues that the NDC have, tabled, talks about the EC's responses, and talk about where we are now and whether or not the EC would actually, if they've corrected all the mistakes, the honest mistakes that Dr. Bosman Asari says they've seen, share a copy of the register to the political party so that they can do their own assessment or conduct a forensic audit. Nobody knows how the EC, where the EC is leaning toward as we speak, but let's see how that goes. So this is from Professor Stephen Adey, basically also adding his voice to the call for transparency and the Electoral Commission doing what would inspire confidence in this institution, which is supposed to be independent, so that come December 7th, whatever results we get, the people will be confident that it was free and fair.
So yes, election and electioneering processes, over the years since 1992, has seen various reforms and changes. We've moved from the opaque ballot boxes to transparent ballot boxes, to changes in the voter register where we had human face attached to names. We've moved from there to biometric registration. And at every juncture within our elections, anytime there's an election, clearly you have one political party or the other. Having some form of speculations and some, activism around our voter register and the electioneering process. So it's nothing new. But of course, everyone is committed to having a robust electoral system, one that would elect a deserving winner, and one that when you lose, you would have no qualms to complain about. So every stakeholder is invited to share his or her view. What's important, rather, is that we shouldn't see these opportunities as means of, perpetuating some more form of fishing expedition. Because clearly, I was quite alarmed when the NDC stated that they had identified over 250,000 discrepancies within the voter register, and we are yet to see such evidences. And when you
haven't seen the evidence of the transfers?
The 250,000 we we were told. We are here to see the
That's not from one place. That's like
it's disseminated. We understand it's disseminated.
But you've not heard of the incidences in Pusiga and the other place.
How many? You see, so at the point of at the end of the day, I always liken this to having a research. You have a population of 261 people you want to do research on. And obviously, time constraint and resources purposes, you can't interview everyone. So you choose what you call the sample size. By the end of the day, it should be representative enough to make sure that if you are done with your research, the numbers you are interviewing or you are researching on would be representative enough for you to make any deduction or determination for the entire population. So if you have 261 districts and you go to Pusiga and you have an issue there and the other areas you pointed out, is it representative enough for you to say that I have enough places or enough districts that if I should have any scientific deduction out of whatever I've discovered, they will be representative enough of the 261. So no one is saying we should shy away when there are issues, but let's ask ourselves, are the issues disseminated enough? Are they ubiquitous enough? Are they enough for us to make a generalization on behalf of the 261?
I must ask you.
Aside, yeah, exactly.
Dr.
For me and where I sit, they are not enough for us to make generalization for the entire 261 districts.
If you were, hold on a second, if you were in opposition and this current government was an NDC government, right, going into the December 7 polls, and you identified these discrepancies, people are unable to confirm their registration, their details or where they'll vote because there's been some transfers. And then you find out that it's not just happening in one polling station, it's happened. And the EC has come out to say that it was an honest mistake and they're correcting it. Would you honestly be satisfied that the EC said they're correcting it, and so yeah, let's just twiddle our thumbs and wait for
what was the purpose of the exhibition
correct
exercise?
It, even without us, they say trust but verify, without verifying that indeed they've corrected these
What is the purpose
mistakes
of the exhibition exercise?
So
the exhibition exercise is to help bring to bear some of these issues and what has been the practices over the years from 92 to 96 to 2000 and whatnot. Anytime we've had such situations, I remember during the time of Afarijan, from what we read, there were such issues, and I mean, committee was set up to deal with such concerns. So yes, we are not saying that you'd find everything perfect with the electoral roster. However, the issues and the discrepancies we identify during the exhibition exercise, that is the purpose of the exhibition exercise. So whatever you encounter, whatever you discover during the exhibition period, you bring them to bear for them to be corrected. But you ask yourself, we have over 200,000 polling stations. How many of those polling stations have you had issues with? And I'm asking.
So in Ahiase constituency, hold on, let me just put the figures in perspective. The NDC found 1,520 transfers in the final register.
In terms of
1,067 more than the 453 transfers recorded by the Electoral Commission. Now you go to Lower Manya Krobo constituency, 2,359 transfers were found, 1,381 more than the 978 recorded by the EC. You go to Yulo Krobo constituency, I think the biggest discrepancy or the largest was found in Isawa Madridge. And the NDC said they found there 4,661 transfers, 2,661 more than the EC's 2,000.
So
if you put all these figures together, it's significant enough.
What the NDC has found. Have we gone ahead to verify that indeed those allegations?
Isn't that what we are asking for? So for the Electoral Commission to come out and say...
The voter exhibition exercise. That whatever you identify to be an anomaly with the roster, you bring them up for us to discuss, for us to be corrected.
You're not getting my question.
I get your question.
I'm asking you.
Make a certain demand that necessarily this is what we want. That is where the problem is.
So answer me this. If you were on the opposition, would you be confident in the Electoral Commission going into the December 7 polls with these discrepancies? And the EC's verbal assurance that the voters register, however provisional, is credible, although you know that you found these. It's an issue of trust. Would you be confident in the Electoral Commission?
We've had such situations over the years. That's what pushed MPP and pro-MPP persons to go to court in 2015 to demand the EC to remove the names of persons who were registered onto the roster with the NHIA, which the NHIA card, which the court largely agreed and directed the EC to delete such names and give people the opportunity again to register with their proper identification system, We've had it over the years. Like I said, if you go into history, there are always issues surrounding elections.
Okay.
But we've had ways of mitigating those problems without necessarily asking for a certain thing that we want, without which we believe there can't be peace because what we want has not been given to us. Let's exhaust the process. And if indeed we believe we have a strong case, like it was done in the case of Mansha South, we can always head to court.
You have to hold
use
for me.
Evidence
Yeah.
for the court to agree with you or otherwise.
All right, I have to take a short break. We'll be back in a bit. Stay with us. Oh, thank you so much for your patience. We're trying to usher in our second guest, Mr. Bismarck Abobiaite, the NDC chairman for Ayawaso West Wuogon. Welcome aboard the news review segment on the AM show.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, because you're late, I would, maybe in the course of the conversation, you get to share your thoughts with us. But the story we're discussing from the Daily Graphic is the story about the Electoral Commission's stance on voter register, the provisional voters register. And the argument really is whether or not, if the NDC were in power and the NPP were in opposition, that if they would be confident in the Electoral Commission based on the discrepancies that have come out and the EC's response, admitting that it was a mistake, but insisting that the voters register is credible and not very open to a forensic audit of the voters register and a possible re-exhibition of it. So that is where we are. Your brief take on that, and then we move on to other stories.
Thank you and good morning. Yes, when it comes to confidence in the Electoral Commission, you can be sure or you can have that confidence when NDC is in power. Because all stakeholders have spoken. They've spoken severally on the basis that 2016-2020, there was a similar forensic audit of the register, which was proposed by the MPP and other stakeholders, which was done. So if NDC, we were able to do it, why now? So this time too, it's necessary that we do it. Let's do it. You know, something that you have admitted there's error in it, you are going to correct the error. How will I know that the error has been corrected or have been collected? The question is that you, the Electoral Commission, you didn't identify those errors. It was identified by the NDC. So if you go ahead to even correct them on your own, bring the result back to the NDC for us to cross-check with the errors that we identified to satisfy ourselves that you have done the correcting. Okay. So if you are saying that you are not bringing the register or you will not allow anybody to go into the system to help you correct the things so that we have confidence that the right things, as we stated and written and presented to you, were resolved amicably, then you are not prepared to work with us. Okay. Therefore, there is something in there that we believe that will be inimical to the progress of our democracy and the way forward of the election 2024.
The truth is, everyone is observing keenly how this all plays out. And it is 72 or so days to the election, the general elections. And so the onus really falls on the Electoral Commission on how to navigate this. And it's a very politically charged environment. And so they need to do what they think best and what they think best. They will do
what will be in the interest
hold on a
of
second.
this
They
country.
will do what they think is best, but I'm saying that they should listen to the voices of the people and the many, many people who've come out, stalwarts, Ibn Chambers. This morning we were just reading about Professor Stephen Adey, CSOs, religious bodies, trade unions, saying that just show us what this register looks like if you've corrected the mistake. But we have to move on.
They are now working with magistrates
I know.
to do something.
Yeah, so like I said, it will go either way.
Point of correction, in 2016, there was never any forensic audit of our register. We never had a forensic
audit. When was the forensic audit done?
There was an audit.
When was that? A forensic audit.
So you want to play semantics with this? Okay.
You can have an audit, but yes.
But there was audit.
All right, let's move on from this.
Body.
Without any forensic audit.
No, there was audit by independent body. I want you to...
Mr. Ajekumobing, there was an audit, not a forensic audit. Point made.
Exactly.
So now, rains caused gridlock in Accra. I was shocked this morning to read this because that was what, a moderate rainfall at best yesterday. But in Accra yesterday morning, it gave yet another indication, and this is on the back page of the Daily Graphic, another indication that the flooding situation is not out of sight. After about an hour of rain, there was some flooding along major roads of Accra, such as the Buzia Highway and Kaneshi in particular. The Dansoman Junction along the same stretch, Banana Inn, Abeka, basically the same places that we see these issues of flooding, or every time there's a moderate rainfall. And the rain therefore caused a gridlock on these stretches around the capital city. Some residents and motorists called for pragmatic steps to deal with the situation. And the question I'm asking is, how long will it take Ghana to nip the issue of flooding in the bud? Every single year, we face the same situations, and this is both NDC and NPP, because flooding didn't start under Akufo-Addo government. What will it take for us to tackle it head on? I remember Wojopo Nkrumah, the Minister for Roads and Highways, saying that we've not even scratched the surface of the work we need to do in terms of fixing this, you know, I think he was talking about the Garrett project and all that. What will it take for us to get out of this situation where just an hour of rainfall yesterday causes flooding and gridlock? Let me start with you, lawyer Ajekumobing. Dr. Ajekumobing.
Obviously, I mean, we've come far, and if you look back over the years, we've had certain improvements. Remember, during the days of President Kufuor, the Alajo stretch of the huge sewage, which was made to curtail the issue of flooding within Alajo and its environs. It was a great gain, I mean, through to the Odo River. And like the Honorable Minister said...
Alajo?
Yeah.
Newtown Alajo, where we have Paloma Hotel also.
Yeah, President Kufuor did that drainage during his time. So clearly we've made some gains. But
have you seen the state of that place now?
President Kufuor made that drainage.
I'm not saying he didn't.
I've not seen the state, but if there's anything wrong, then it means we need to maintain the place. So there's still a lot that needs to be done by way of making sure that our drainage system is well kept. We keep, I mean, flagging the issue year in, year out, but we still need to work very hard at it. And my place up to the Ofankor stretch, we used to have a similar problem, but I must commend my municipal chief executive. He took a bold decision and got people to make sure he dredged the drainage, I mean, around the Ofankor barrier and its environs. And yesterday when I applied the road after the rains, I'm surprised at some parts saw such floods, I mean, emanating. I didn't see such, I mean, around my area and that particular stretch of
doesn't mean it didn't happen.
So I'm not saying it didn't happen.
Yeah, you're taking time to get to the point.
Indeed,
the point.
There is a lot we can do. We've had few gains in that regard. We still need to be committed to do more. And the new areas coming up, let's see how town and country planning, the environmental healthcare officers, and all stakeholders come in to make sure that we redesign our roads and our sewage system and drainage system such that the areas that are coming up will not face the issues the already developed places have. And let's see how we can best, I mean, redesign our drainage system. The Honorable Minister, when he took over, toured those places, and he's had a roadmap for it, except...
What are you talking about? Kojo Nkrumah?
Yes,
Works and Housing Minister.
Yes, one of the first things he did when he took over was to tour those flood-prone areas. And he came out with some amount that, I mean, we need to get the issues corrected. So I believe the issue is more with funding.
Is it? I thought it's an issue of waste management, because the reason I raised an eyebrow when you mentioned that Alajo place, we did a series, Filth Exhibition, and I went there to speak to the people there. The drain, it's there, all right, But every time it rains heavily, not with this moderate one we saw yesterday, every time it rains heavily, the place still floods. Ask me why. Because they don't have proper waste management systems. And so they're using the gutter, which is supposed to be a drainage and, you know, suck away the rain from them, as a dumping ground for their rubbish, refuse, and all things.
In the absence
and I'm saying that,
right? I mean, people will find ways to exist.
So the point I'm getting to, and you have to hold for me, let me make it, is that do we understand that the problem is not just about creating gutters, but proper policies, waste management systems, facilities to actually enhance the way we treat waste so that they don't come back and block the, you know, waterways and what's it called, drainages, so that the flooding doesn't. Most of these places that are flooded, it's not because they don't have gutters. It's because the people are dumping rubbish into these gutters. And so it's like you're solving the problem, but you're just creating more problems for yourself because you have the gutter, but the waste management systems, that's where the deficit is. Briefly, and then I have to come to Mr. Bobby.
Obviously multifaceted. There are elements of human making as well. There are people, you'll be surprised, even if you have the ASADU, the community waste collectors, the national waste collectors, even if you have them, there are people, because of the little they would pay for their refuse to be collected, they rather choose to dump them elsewhere. We see it along our major highways.
So why aren't we whipping these people up into shape?
As I said, it's multifaceted.
Anyway.
And every stakeholder, everyone involved, every agency involved needs to be up and doing. Clearly.
Okay. Mr. Bobby, your take on this matter?
Thank you. It's a failure as a nation or as government. You know, you admitted that you said during NDC time. Yes. NDC time, what we identified and we were doing was that every month, every first Saturday of every month, every community would do cleanup. We try to distribute the community gutters. Because the community gutters culminate into the main gutter.
Are you saying every month?
No, every
during
month, NDC.
Really?
Yes,
okay.
yes.
No, go on, I'm not stopping you.
Can attest to that. But even by then, we don't have sanitation levy. So when MPP came and they brought a sanitation levy, which you and I are paying us at now, we thought that it will help sanitize our environment a little. But nothing has been done since. To extend that, under Cecilia Dapa, they went for 44 million from World Bank to construct gutters and other things. We end up finding those money, some of those money, in Cecilia Dapa's
You don't know for sure that that's the money that we
because
found
he has
there.
not been able to prove.
You're speculating.
That $1 million is coming from that money that
on this channel, until you can prove it, you can't make such statements. So yes,
until she also proved where he got the money, I will stop saying it. Because I believe it's.
But she's not here, Mr. Bobby. I'm just saying that you cannot say that that is the money we found in Cecilia Dapa's home because we don't know for sure where the money came from. The OSP couldn't even.
Thank you
prove
for
that,
disassociating your station. But the question is that problem that we had, that you were voted for to come and solve, if the problem still emanates or continue aggressively, it means we voted for people.
This is about proffering solutions, Mr. Bobby. It's not about lambasting which government did worse than the other. I'm asking, do we understand that? It's about waste management. It's about proper policies. It's about whipping. When I was young, I remember, I don't know what they're called, but we used to call them tankers. Yeah, but I think it's town council or something. You know, and you dare not dump rubbish in gutters and leave your surrounding. What happened to these initiatives and what happened? And today,
you still have the environmental.
Do you still have these people going around and whipping people into shape? You see, it's not just about creating or, you know, bringing out policies. It's about enforcement, which I think is the major problem we have in this country. We have the laws, we have the policies, but implementation is our problem.
So if you collect levy to aid you do the work and you are not doing it, what would the public do? Instead of using the public to work, every month, let's go and do communal labor, clean our gutters and environment. You say, no, you will not do it. You will tax the people, and you, the government, will do it for them. Now you are taxing us, and you are not doing it. By NDC time, there was no tax, but areas were clear and clean. Where we have to weed, we are weeding. Where gutters are choked, we are clearing them, defeating
They
them.
actually did that 1 month thing.
No.
No, I'm not saying it's a 1 month. Like every month there was an activity.
The was doing something.
Every region, every.
I just cannot confirm it was every month.
Assembly, every month.
There was no flooding during your time.
I'm saying that whether there is flooding or not, there was effort for us to start something. Did you continue? After even taxing us on top, did you continue to ensure that our gutters are defeated for free flow? Can you imagine airport residential area? Airport, East Legon, Jowulu, when it rains, all these important areas, I would say elite community, they all get flooded anytime it rains. Last small rain that you are talking about 3 days ago, when you go to airport, what is the problem? It means the small gutters are choked. Who is to clear them? If you can't do it, motivate the ordinary Ghanaian through a communal labor.
I mean, obviously,
to do it.
Well, we have to wrap up on this. So, in business, gentlemen, let's do this. In business, Ghana awaits $360 million as third IMF review begins, and after 11 months of negotiations, we are here again. This is still the Daily Graphic, a mission from the International Monetary Fund is currently in town for the third review of Ghana's 3-year program with the fund. The review, which started last Tuesday and expected to end on October 4th, will assess the performance of the country in relation to the performance targets agreed with the fund under the program, which is aimed at restoring macroeconomic stability and debt sustainability. Ahead of the review, the government had expressed confidence of meeting all the targets. At the last monthly economic update, the Minister of Finance, I remember that, Dr. Amin Adam said preliminary data for the first half of 2024 indicates that the country was on track to meeting the targets for the third review. I don't even want to get into it. Let me throw it straight to you. So we are waiting for the third, and the government says they are confident that all targets have been met, and we will be receiving that 360 million third IMF tranche bailout.
Target met. Has that target reflected in your well-being?
Actually, they can cite, and I'm not speaking for the NPP in particular, but the government has been very consistent in releasing the figures, statistics to back how the economy is going. That's, the macro indicators. They've been very specific. And I keep saying, being malicious, that if the economy was good, you wouldn't have to be telling us all the time. So if you ask that question, if the targets have been met, I can tell you that they will cite all these figures and statistics to back it. So.
In fact, you and I has no privilege to look into the kitty, to know whatever they are giving to us. Only what can allow me to reflect better on whether these things are feasible is that these indicators are supposed to release Ghanaians from certain burdens that the government brought upon us before the IMF deal. So if you are not free and you are still under that bondage, then these indicators they are telling us it has been met.
Will be met. It not has been met already, but they are confident that they will meet it.
It means first,
second, third, yes.
They met some criteria,
yeah.
And the money was released. Yeah, we don't know what that money has been used for and the impact on the economy as we speak now.
We can ask Dr.
Yes, probably they will be able to tell us. But for me, as a business person and as ordinary Ghanaian, I find it difficult to understand because the IMF deal basically was to help them punish Ghanaians more. That is where the whole
punish Ghanaians?
Yes. But how can a Chief Justice will go on a demonstration because her future earnings to help her sustain her life into her grave has been touched by this government. That is the situation I'm talking about.
We have about 30 seconds more.
So please, I don't believe this. It's a paperwork. The impact, we must show it. The exchange rate must stabilize. Going forward, we have to ensure that businesses are doing well. By businesses are collapsing daily. People who are in business are crying. Individual people are crying. So if they've met the target, then they should remove yield levy. Because yield levy was one of the reasons why the IMF was one of the reasons why they started charging our yield levy. So if the things are improving, remove yield levy now for us. Remove the COVID levy now for
Mr.
us.
Bobby, thank you.
Remove the missing tax and all those things that they try to use to, you know, skew the system.
Point me.
So
is that being an IMF, is it helping us?
We went to the IMF, obviously, for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
We saw where issues and problems skyrocketed to post-COVID impacts on many nations. We can speak, even the global superpowers had their own share of COVID issues. And Ghana, being a liberal economy, we also had our problems. And what we keep saying is that the leadership is not just absence of problems, rather what we do to curtail those problems when they emanate. So clearly when the issues happened, the same statistical service that was reviewing our inflationary rate and was telling us that we peaked at 54.1%. As at the time we're having inflation of 54.1%, Mr. Bobby and the NDC believed that indeed inflation was over 50%. Now inflation is 20.4, he doesn't believe it. It's the same NDC that believed that when we were growing at 0.5%, they believed we're not doing well. At the same time, they are trying to run away from the same institution that churned out those figures, which they ran to the market with. They are refusing to believe those figures now. But whether or not it's believed, we have seen the improvement, the economy is recovering. We've seen trade surplus that was recently reported. Indeed, the second quarter growth, 6.9%, a very robust growth, and an average growth of first half of the year is 5.4. We are not saying that everything has reversed back into pre-COVID days.
Great point. So would you agree then that sometimes, just let me feed into your submission, sometimes the figures that are captured in terms of inflation and growth of GDP and all that does not actually reflect in our day-to-day expenses in terms of hiking food prices, the price for which you get these goods, it remains, you know, on a steady upward rise. Meanwhile, they would give us these figures that inflation has reduced by some percentage, but you would agree with me that it doesn't reflect in our pockets.
The reduction of inflation doesn't mean you go to the market.
No, I know that. I'm saying to you that you made a point.
The rate of increment has reduced. Things would increase, but the rate of increment has reduced.
And do we see that? Do we see the reduction in that rate of increment?
You see them because before you go to the market and the phone used to cost, let's say, 1,000 cedis. The next month you go, it's about 2,000. The rate of increment now, compared to before, the 1,000 cedi increment has now reduced, let's say, 100 cedis. That's the import of reduction in inflationary figures, for example. And it's the same reason why, for the fourth time running, your fuel prices are coming down. If the economy is not responding to the program, if the economy is not responding to government policies to bring us back onto better track, you wouldn't see the prices of fuel at the pumps reducing, for example. So we've not said that everything about the Ghanaian has become better overnight. But of course, we got to a certain level. Our economy was performing at a certain level during and post-COVID when our issues were heightened. And at this point, when we are turning the corner, these are the way forward for us, and that is where we are now. The economy is doing well. We are now hitting economic growth of around 6.9%.
We have just
the first half increment of 5.8%. Inflation is on a downward trend. Fuel prices are coming down for the fourth time running in any review that we've had.
And let's let our audience be the judge of that. Please walk us through the Daily Guide
newspaper. IMF would come.
Briefly, we have just a couple of minutes to go.
The third tranche will definitely come. So the front page said the president will grace the 28th GJA Awards winners already announced. So we say kudos to journalists in the country. Keep helping governments, keep helping societies, keep helping individuals, keep feeding us with unbiased information and accurate reportage. And you are
I thought you walk us through all the stories on the front page.
Stakeholder in our electioneering process. So as we are gearing up to elections, we know the role journalists and media houses will play. So we say kudos to all journalists. And parts of the front page issues, the ECG boss resigns, reasons best known to him. And government moves to pay Trafigura, says the finance minister, and there's a bit on the demonstration that happened over the weekend, and the persons arrested by the police. Those have already been arraigned before the courts and the rest. So NDC is demanding that the other 11 remanded people be released. So that's on the front page.
Okay, I'll take quick reflections from you, Mr. Bobby, and then we go.
Yes.
Which of these stories?
I will concentrate on let our people go. NDC defend protesters. 11 more reminded. It's unfortunate how Delhi Guide has been, I don't know. I don't
Captures,
use
yeah.
word to use. Since this thing started, ordinary Ghanaians, even if some of them are NDC, they also drink water. So if they have issue with the pollution of our water bodies, and they are calling on the president to halt Galamsey or illegal mining so that Ghana will have a future in terms of the water that we drink, they started first. 46 NDC protesters arrested. Yesterday, it was 39 NDC protesters reminded. Today, let my people go, NDC defense protesters. I'm asking that Oliver whatever the name is.
Hey, Oliver Bakavomao.
Yes, it's a very heavy name for me to mention. This gentleman, I don't know whether he has NDC card, whether he belongs to NDC or MPP or any other political party. The real issues are that MPP has supervised the, the illegal mining sector to an extent that when they came, we thought they could have stopped this thing, but rather they have allowed their own boys, youth in mining. How do you create youth in mining and also pretend?
I want him to land on the point because, in fact, we've seen. I'm not allowing
you have
it,
created
but
youth
he's
in
not
mining.
said.
So
Okay, Mr. Bobby, hold on.
Has allowed it.
We have seen.
Yes,
we have seen documents with names of NPP political actors who are behind certain mining concessions or mining in various places. And so he hasn't.
The name you saw polluting our water bodies. Have you been to a
forest? I'm talking about
just last week. Just last week, Erastus Asari
in the forest.
And Akunta mining is polluting our water bodies. I don't think
the washings of where he's mining is washing right into the Tano River. Just last week, Erastus Asari Donko brought that story to me. And so I'm not interjecting because he's not saying anything that is
your
not.
boys who are doing youth in mining, where are they mining?
Anyway, gentlemen,
so
we have
it
to
is
go.
the MPP, so Delhi Guard should be ashamed of this.
I don't think you should allow this. MPP has not
Ghana
sanctioned
Media
anyone
Commission
to go and do something.
Media Commission should be checking
very well.
some of these falsehoods.
Hold on a second. Why haven't all these names that have come up? Why haven't we seen any action at all from the president or from the people in power saying that we've seen that these names have
report said that when you go to Western and Western North region, NDC is the West Coast.
Arrest them. You are in power.
All right. Thank you so much. So joining us for news review is Bismarck Abobiaite, NDC chairman for Ayawaso West Wogon, as well as lawyer Dr. Kwabena Ajekumobeng, a member of the NPP communications team. Many thanks for your time. Ushering us into sports coming up next. You want to stay for that.
Let's do sports now on the AM show. My name is Haruna Mubarak. We begin with the National Sports Authority, which has pledged not to rent out state-owned stadiums until pitch covers are acquired. The Baba Yara Sports Stadium had been rented out for a 5-day church program, which left the pitch in poor condition. The Black Stars lost 1-0 to Angola in their opening AFCON qualifier at the venue, with the pitch becoming a major point of concern. This led to CAF placing a ban on the stadium, raising the possibility that Ghana may have to host their next home match abroad. NSA chairman Seth Panwum says they want to avoid a similar situation in the future.
And as a board, we have also come in to institute certain measures to ensure that it doesn't happen again. and to ensure that the other sporting facilities that we have are all up to standard to be able to engage in sporting activities in this country, other than moving it to other sister countries to go and have participation. And we have also directed, I don't know whether it's the right time to put it out, we've also directed that none of our sporting stadiums should be used for no other activity other than sporting activities until such time that we can hold claim to pitch covers. That it is no news when you go to other countries. Even Wembley is given out for concert, but they ensure that they protect the pitch, with pitch covers. So as a country, I've had discussion with our Minister of Finance through our sector minister to see how urgently they can help, because we are also mandated to generate revenue, and our gate proceeds are insufficient to mandate us to fulfill that requirement put to us by you honorable members of parliament, to do as well. So I can assure you that on this call we are doing so well to make sure that what happened before doesn't happen again. And the officer is also undergoing disciplinary measures. The officer who gave the facility out and failed to recover the pitch ahead of the game is also undergoing disciplinary measures at the authority as we speak.
Now, September's international break was disappointing for the Black Stars, who picked up just 1 point from 2 matches in the 2025 AFCON qualifiers. The winless run saw the team drop 6 places in the latest FIFA World Rankings. Now, former Ghana captain Stephen Appiah believes several players have grown complacent within the national team. He called for the inclusion of deserving home-based players, a strategy he believes worked effectively during his playing days.
I think, yes, we have to give the local players, we have to give them the chance and confidence to play for the national team. So in our time, even there are certain players that looks as if they are key players in the team. We were not key players. We have players like William Theo and the rest who were pushing us. So we too have to make sure that we are not going to allow them to take our positions. For example, when we went to the World Cup 2006, Osei Kufuor was a top defender. After the game against Germany, after the game against Italy, the second game against Czech Republic, it was Chile Alias who was playing for Kotoko. He came in and he stamped the position. Brilliant player. You have Habib Mohamed, who took Adokwepa position, play number 3. Fantastic. So in our time, there was a competition. Today, there was no competition. So some of the players, they feel so cool that whether they play well or not, they will play. But in our time, it wasn't like that. There was a competition. When we played our second qualifier against South Africa in Kumasi, we lost our first game. We beat South Africa 3-0. I scored 2 goals, but I wasn't the man of the match. It was William Theo who was playing for Liberty Professional. So this is the difference. Today we don't have such things anymore. We have our players now running to go to Tanzania. It's a shame. They should rather come here. We have our players now going to Sudan. When we played against Niger, the number 7 who was the best player on the pitch, who played for Niger, is a Ghanaian. We have a striker who won the Goal King in Ghana Premier League because he didn't get the chance. Now he's playing for Togo. So we have to give our boys, we have to give them the chance. And because today our league is not attractive, that's why they are running and going to other countries. Why? Because some of the boys are earning 300 cedis. They are earning 500 cedis. And at times they have to go beyond 5 months. They have children, they have to take care of home, they have to pay their bills. So somebody will come and say, okay, I'll give you $800. They will go. That's why today we even open a free gate Kotoko against Accra Suffolk, empty stadium. So we have to try and look at those things.
Over the years, the Black Stars have benefited immensely from the Right to Dream Academy, as several graduates have become key players for the senior national team. Currently, Mohamed Kudus and Kamaldeen Sulemana are the two standout stars in the Black Stars from the academy. The academy continues its tradition of developing talent by offering scholarships to 7 youngsters with the aim of molding them into top players for the future. This event took place yesterday during their 25th anniversary celebration in the Eastern region. There is more in this report.
Than you are asked, and you will receive more than you can dream. This is one of many quotes at Right to Dream Academy that emphasizes generosity and giving back to the community.
Touching lives, touching the national team, hopefully. I mean, touching, and our work is across different pillars: football excellence, educational excellence, and character excellence. So just multiplying the numbers that we've already done. And I haven't even touched on the football. We have the Mohamed Kuduses, the Warises. We've done a lot for national teams, not just in Ghana, but actually across a number of countries. And so just multiples of the numbers that we've done. If we had a number of entities like Right to Dream that were doing this, I think that our country's stories, the narrative around our country would be happier than it normally is.
As they celebrate 25 years of existence, the Academy left an indelible mark on the lives of 7 talented student athletes that will stay with them forever.
My name is Desmond Puss. I come from Accra, but I stay at Amazon. I am 10 years old. I am very happy to get this scholarship. And I thank all the coaches and the staff for helping me to get this scholarship. Thank you.
My name is Abdurazak Mohammed. I come from Tamanu Town. I give thanks to my family, my coach, and all the staff members in this academy. I am very glad to get this scholarship. Thank you.
The parents of the scholarship recipients couldn't contain their joy.
In fact, I don't know how to describe, and I think I'll never get words to describe my happiness this morning, because Right to Dream is the best academy, of which it is not second to anything. Not second to anything. So not only me, but the family and then the entire community is very, very happy hearing that our child is under scholarship. Yeah, I want to see him as a Ronaldo of his time. Yeah.
7 youngsters are now part of the over 90 students in camp whose futures seem to be on the right track. They are expected to be nurtured and eventually follow the footsteps of shining stars like Mohamed Kudus of West Ham and Simone Dingra at Brighton.
We want to give every single individual within our organization an opportunity. And that's much more important for us than numbers in terms of quantity, but really it's important that we equip every single student athlete with an opportunity, whether that's on the football side or on the academic side, or just general access to live life on their own terms.
It comes to Right to Dream. Right to Dream is, for me, is the best academy in the world right now in terms of like the things that we do and the care that we give to the children and how positive impact we make in their lives. You know, you can see Right to Dream, like a lot of graduates can, you know, you can see for yourself how they are doing in Europe and in the USA. So for me, Right to Dream is really, really special. If, like, we are 25 years now, the next 25 years, we don't know how it's going to be, but I hope that we can have more Right to Dream in this world, and I think this world will be in a better place.
Right to Dream Academy has earned global recognition for producing exceptional talents with focus on academics and athletics. as they mark their 25-year anniversary, their impact has been nothing short of incredible, which begs the question what they could be achieving in 2049, their 50th anniversary. Haruna Mubarak from the old Accra city in the eastern region for Joy Sports.
Welcome to the big stories on the AM show here on Joy News, your home of independent, fearless, and credible journalism. We focus for our big story, our first big story today, on President Akufo-Addo's final speech or final address to the UN General Assembly, where he highlighted critical issues regarding Africa's position in the global system, calling for reforms in global governance, particularly the UN Security Council, and stressing the need for Africa to take ownership of its security and development. He also claimed that Ghana remains the beacon of democracy and good governance in West Africa. These statements are particularly significant, especially in the face of rising instability and fragile democracies in the region. We will be discussing this with our guests, but first, let's take a listen to what the president said, and then we'll come back to discuss.
Help but reflect on the significance of this moment, as this will be my final opportunity to address the United Nations General Assembly as I enter the closing months of my presidency. Over the past 8 years, I've had the privilege of speaking on several variations of the essential themes that quite properly dominate the deliberations of this global assembly: the condition of humanity and the state of the planet. Serving the people of Ghana, and by extension those of West Africa, Africa, and the world, has truly been the greatest blessing of my life. Indeed, being here this morning fills me with both pride and humility. Pride in the limited progress we have made together as nations, and humility in recognizing the challenges that still remain. My time as president has been deeply fulfilling, and I'm profoundly grateful for the trust placed in me by my fellow Ghanaians. It has been an honor to serve them and to contribute to advancing peace, security, and development on the global stage. Madam President, I'm here with a heart full of hope, yet mindful of the great challenges that still confront us. As President of the Republic of Ghana and as a citizen of the world, I'm acutely aware of the shared responsibility we carry. Our work here is nothing less than shaping the future of humanity, a future that will affect generations long after we are gone. Leaving no one behind, acting together for the advancement of peace, sustainable development, and human dignity for present and future generations, reminds us that the decisions we take here will define whether we rise to meet the hopes of billions or continue to let inequalities and injustice persist. We owe it to those who look to this body for leadership to act and not just to talk. The world we live in today is a stark, unfortunate contrast of privilege and hardship. For too long, the voices of those marginalized, those left behind, have been drowned out. They constitute the bulk of humanity. These are the voices of the poor, the displaced, the vulnerable. We cannot, in good conscience, leave them behind. They should be at the center of our discussions and our decisions. Africa, in particular, knows the cost of being left out. Yes, we're a continent rich in potential and resilient in the face of adversity, but we have also been disadvantaged by a global system that has generally treated us as an afterthought. We've been viewed merely as passive recipients of aid rather than as equal partners in global progress. The well-meaning promises of assistance have failed to materialize to bring about the long-term change we so passionately need. Such aid as is offered often comes with strings attached, limiting our ability to shape our own futures. Africa is not a continent of despair. She's full of great possibilities. She's required, however, to chart a new course of development. Our young population is filled with energy, creativity, and ambition. The people of Africa are not asking for handouts. They're demanding opportunities in a new global architecture so they can have access to education, healthcare, and jobs to be able to build better lives for themselves, their families, and their descendants. In Ghana, we've taken bold and decisive steps to ensure that no one is left behind in our national development, and we have shown that it is possible. Our flagship free senior high school policy has benefited 5.7 million young people, many of whom would have been denied the opportunity to learn, to dream, and to succeed. This initiative has transformed the lives of millions, positioning the next generation of Ghanaians to take their place as leaders in the global economy. But this is just the beginning. We need a global commitment to ensure that every child, no matter where they are born, has access to quality education. A world where children are left unprepared for the challenges ahead is not a just world. Beyond education, we've also prioritized healthcare for our people. Through Agenda 111, my government has embarked on the largest ever healthcare infrastructure project in Ghana's history. This initiative is constructing 111 hospitals across the country, ensuring that even the most remote regions have access to modern healthcare facilities. This is part of our broader goal of ensuring that no one in Ghana is left without the basic right to health. We've also taken significant steps to boost food security and economic growth through the Program for Planting for Food and Jobs. This initiative has improved food production, created jobs, and enhanced incomes for millions of Ghanaians. It is a clear demonstration that with the right policies and investments, we can transform our agricultural sector and ensure that no one goes hungry. In the same vein, our one district, one factory policy is transforming the industrial landscape of the nation, generating the structural transformation of our economy, which is our major strategic objective. And in addition, Ghana has embraced in full the teachings of the Fourth Industrial Revolution and is actively pursuing an agenda of digitalization. Under my administration, we've revolutionized public service delivery by integrating technology into governance. From the introduction of the Ghana Card, which has streamlined identification and access to services, to the digitalization of the country's land registry, these reforms have enhanced transparency, efficiency, and accountability. Digitalization has improved the lives of ordinary Ghanaians and has also laid the groundwork for sustainable economic growth in the digital age. And let us not forget the strides we have made in enhancing the rule of law and governance through reforms in the judicial system, strengthening our democratic institutions, and promoting transparency. Ghana continues to be a beacon of good governance in Africa. We have enacted laws and implemented policies that uphold the principles of accountability and ensure that every Ghanaian, regardless of their background, is protected by the rule of law. Madam President, it is impossible to address the challenges of today without speaking of the contradictions that exist within this global institution. We gather here to discuss peace, but wars continue to ravage nations. We speak of justice, yet justice endures. Take the Russian invasion of Ukraine, for instance. Millions of lives have been uprooted. Thousands have lost their lives, and yet the Security Council has struggled to respond decisively, just as it is struggling to make a decisive intervention in the tragic ongoing war in Gaza and the Lebanon. The structure of the Council reflects a world that no longer exists, and its failure to act in times of crisis raises a difficult question. What is the purpose of the Security Council if it cannot intervene when the world needs it most? Reforming the UN Security Council is a matter of fairness and necessity. The current structure, created in 1945, no longer reflects the realities of today's geopolitical and economic landscape. Africa, Latin America, and South Asia remain underrepresented despite their significant influence on global affairs. This lack of representation undermines the legitimacy of the Council's decisions, and the use of veto power by a few permanent members often paralyzes its ability to act effectively during crises. Reform is essential to ensure that the Council is more inclusive, democratic, and responsive to the complex challenges we face today. The world has changed, and the Security Council must change with it to maintain its relevance in promoting global peace and security. For years, I've championed the need to reform the Security Council as per the Ezulwini Consensus, the common African position on UN reform, which calls for Africa to have permanent seats on the Council. It is incomprehensible that a continent of 1.4 billion people has no permanent voice in shaping decisions that affect global peace and security. The time for half measures is over. We need a Security Council that is fit for purpose in today's world. It is heartening, however, that finally the demand for reform has found acceptance by leaders of 2 of the 5 permanent members, President Joe Biden of the United States of America and President Emmanuel Macron of France. Hopefully, the others will soon follow suit. We must also recognize that the fight for peace goes beyond government actions. It is a fight for humanity itself. In Africa, we have often borne the brunt of conflicts, sending our troops to peacekeeping missions with limited support from the global community. While I'm pleased to see the UN now taking steps to finance peacekeeping in Africa, an outcome of Ghana's presidency of the UN Security Council, we must go further. Peacekeeping alone is not enough. We must address the potential causes of conflict, poverty, inequality, and lack of opportunity. True peace comes from investing in education, healthcare, and economic development. However, peace cannot be imposed from the outside. It must be built from within. African nations must take ownership of their security, and the African Union needs to strengthen itself to be able to respond swiftly to threats. Madam President, as I speak today, ongoing developments in West Africa are deeply troubling. Military coups in Mali, Guinea, Burkina Faso, and Niger threaten the democratic progress we have worked so hard to achieve within the ECOWAS community. These coups are stark reminders that democracy is indeed fragile and must be continually nurtured. In Ghana, however, we will remain resolute in our commitment to democracy. As my presidency draws to a close, I want to assure this Assembly that the upcoming 2024 elections in Ghana will be free, fair, and transparent. Ghanaians have demonstrated time and again in the last 3 decades their strong attachment to democracy, which they will not permit to be undermined. The Electoral Commission, supported by Ghana's security services, is well equipped to ensure that the will of the Ghanaian people is respected. Ghana has long been a beacon of democracy in Africa, and we intend to keep it that way. The 2024 elections will be proof of our enduring adherence to the rule of law, transparency, and the principles of democratic accountability that have guided our nation in recent decades. Madam President, we find ourselves at a pivotal moment in history. The decisions we make today will shape the future of our world. We can choose to act with courage, compassion, and a commitment to leave no one behind, or we can choose inaction and allow the suffering of millions and the degradation of the planet to continue. Let me end by reminding us all that the future is not something that simply happens. It is something we create. We have the power in this room to change the course of history. Let us not shy away from that responsibility. Let us act now, and let us act together. I wish you God's blessings in all your current and future deliberations, and I thank you for your attention.
On behalf of the Assembly, I wish to thank the President of the Republic.
Interesting comments there, and I think my takeaway, 3 thematic areas: Ghana's commitment to democracy and good governance, the accountability of public officials, and the need for reforms at the UN Security Council to reflect the current geopolitical realities, which feeds into the President's posturing on where Africa stands on the global stage. But let's discuss this. My guest this morning is Dr. Ishmael Kwabla Hlovor. He's an international relations expert and a political analyst, and he joins us via Zoom. Doc, many thanks for your time. Let me start by asking you for a quick reflection on everything that the President has said before we get surgical with it.
Okay, good morning, and good morning to your viewers. I think that the President's speech is diplomatically apt, and he actually did a good job by recounting some of his achievements in office, highlighting what he thinks he has achieved for Ghana, or for humanity. He also went on to dive a little bit into the challenges, acknowledging the challenges that still persist, before calling on the UN for some reforms, which is appropriate, because for a very long time that the Security Council has been a little bit of not up to tax institution, but when it comes to major conflict involving major powers, the institution seems to be paralyzed because of how it was structured and the issue of veto power, and also the marginalization of Africa as a group, as a continent from that council, and a lot of global governance institutions and structures that somehow marginalized Africa out of world governance and continue to keep us somehow impoverished and underdeveloped. So, on the nutshell, these are very good diplomatic engagement that he has. It's a chance to sell Ghana. He did his best. But then, as we interrogate it, you will see that some of the issues, just opposing what's happening on the ground, may not look what it actually.
Yeah, so let's start there. So the President portrayed Ghana as a beacon of democracy and good governance on the African continent. From an international relations or an international perspective, really, let's open it up a bit. How valid is this claim? Are there areas where Ghana is actually seen as a model, and where do the gaps remain?
Thank you. If you look at the democratic development, particularly in the sub-region, West Africa and Africa for that matter, Ghana has done a relatively decent job in advancing the cause of democracy. Indeed, over the last 30 years, we have been the country that have progressively improved on the conduct of elections, even regardless of the challenges we have had. Even when we are pushed to the wall, we use the judicial system to somehow address our differences, and we keep going. And that cannot be taken away from the nation Ghana. Now, if you look around what's happening across the sub-region with the reintroduction of schools in the sub-region in the recent past, then that should tell you that as a country, we have done quite a decent job. We have done so well in advancing the cause of democracy. And as he has said, he has come to the end of his tenure and he's peacefully handing over. There is no attempt to try to prolong his rule, to stay in power beyond the term's limit. At least all the leaders that we have had under the Fourth Republic, even the one that was feared that he would try to empower with the constitution, Rawlings peacefully handed over. President Kufuor handed over. President Mill unfortunately passed on. President Mahama handed over, and President Akufo-Addo, through this speech, has indicated his readiness to hand over power to whoever may be winning the next election. So you must give Ghana some credit for how far we have been able to nurture and grow in democratic practice, although there are obvious challenges, even in the administration of elections, in terms of our judicial system and other aspects of democracy. Yes, we are still nurturing. It takes time to grow some of these democratic institutions and then the relevant democratic culture that support them. We are still a growing democracy, but if you look across the board comparatively, we have scored quite a high mark that other nations, at least within the sub-region, look up to.
So, I mean, in light of these remarks that the president has made, and you've just highlighted on where we've actually made significant gains in terms of our democratic development and the gaps that remain, how realistic is it that these reforms that the president is calling for at the United Nations Security Council can actually see the light of day?
These reforms of the Security Council has long been an aspiration for African leaders who believe that in terms of geopolitical configuration of the world, this is unfair to them. But you see that it took a long time for some leaders like the United States, like France, to come around and agree that indeed what was agreed in 1945 can no longer hold water in this world. But again, it's about power, and therefore those who hold power will normally not give out power voluntarily. So it's a call that will keep on having. But even if you look at the position of the United States on this issue, where they somehow reluctantly agree that Africa needs a permanent seat, there is still the issue of if Africa will have a veto power. Because if you look at the Security Council, actually, the whole issue, the whole power of it is the use of the veto power within the Security Council. If you talk about the war in Ukraine, if you talk about Gaza, it's about the fact that the US, the Russians, the Chinese have the veto power. So any resolution brought before this council that does not favor any of them will be vetoed. So, but the US position is that Africa should be given a seat, but without a veto power. That is literally saying that you are admitting Africa into the room, but Africa will not have a voice. And that, I'm not sure that's a position Africans need. They need to be part and parcel of the decision making. So if you admit Africa into the Security Council, any Africa into the Security Council, you must be looking at either granting them the veto power or taking away the veto power entirely. Because if we are just going to participate in the decisions of the Security Council as permanent members without
non-permanent members,
as permanent members without the accompanying veto power to influence what they are doing, it will amount to virtually validating and legitimizing what the permanent members will be doing, because then you don't have the moral right to question that you were not part of that process and that process will affect you, because then it will be pointed out to you that you were part of the process. So I believe that Africa does not want to be in the room, but Africa wants to be in the room and be relevant and take part in the decisions that they are making. Now, again, it has to do with how does Africa want to be a permanent member? There are various proposals that are being made. Some countries like Nigeria want a permanent seat for themselves, but that in this world will not be ideal. The most ideal proposal, perhaps the one that comes from Paul Kagame, that the permanent seat of Africa should be given to the African Union Commission, and then one of it should be rotational among the member countries, which should cure the issue of rivalry among the regional powers. So this call will keep growing as more of the advanced, powerful nations of the world are becoming more receptive of the call. Then it then borders on how will Africa be admitted. And so it's a long-term process that will take some time. The expansion of this council is long overdue. It has given undue power to some countries to influence issues within other parts of the world. But if Africa will also own its own security, it depends on Africa making significant commitment to security at home.
Doctor, let me probe that point you just made about Africa taking control of its own security. I mean, the president's call for nations to take ownership of their own security comes at a time when external interventions have often been viewed as insufficient or misaligned with the African interest. So what specific steps can we take as African countries like Ghana to assert greater control over our security challenges? And how can the regional bodies like ECOWAS play a more effective role in maintaining stability and preventing conflict?
Thank you. So when we talk about security, there are various dimensions to it. One, the basis of it is that most of the security issues that African countries are facing are issues of governance, are issues of democratic deficit. So, and if you look at the coups that we have had that have actually brought military regimes to power, is the inability of the African state to govern effectively and provide security. And that have given room to some of these military leaders to take control. So how do we take back control? One is to face our governance challenges. I mean, good governance will cure most of the security issues that we are facing. But more importantly, in as much as we want to be in control of our own security, we will still need support. As you see the president, as he talks about we taking control of our own security, he's still asking for the international community to help us in terms of going to peacekeeping and others. And so somehow we will have to be reliant on them to face our problems for us. So what is needed is, for instance, the long-term project of an African standing army. That should be a project that the African Union should lead significantly. The ECOWAS standby force must be activated to have a contingent that is always ready to be deployed to areas where violent conflict may erupt unexpectedly. Now, so that means that states must begin to put significant resources into some of these regional bodies. What we have currently is that ECOWAS, AU, all these are being funded by external sources. So once they are funding you, you can virtually wane yourself off of their influence. So countries must increase their output. And that means that the governance of our economies must also significantly improve. And that also call for some level of restructuring of the world economy. Currently, not only the Security Council is unfair to Africa, the global economy itself is somehow unfair to Africa. That notwithstanding the economic mismanagement by African countries themselves. So you look at, for instance, debt to GDP ratio of African countries. What you observe is that many of these African countries are below 100% threshold, but then they borrow at comparatively very high interest rate of between 5 to 16% for 10-year bond in the Eurobond market. And this is quite a huge interest. So part of the problem driving the African debt crisis is actually that huge interest rate that African countries are forced to pay due to other bad credit ratings and misperceptions about Africa. So this needs to be corrected. If you look at Canada, you look at the US, all of them, their debt to GDP ratio is over 100%, but they are borrowing at virtually almost zero interest. And that is unfair. These are the kind of structures that somehow keep Africa where it is. And so you may have to consider situations where Africans are dealt with equally so that they can economically be empowered to take their own destiny and security into their hands.
So it all comes down to self-reliance, our ability to produce more, increase our exports so that we have more control over our affairs. And, you know,
once you have more control over your economy, once you have more control over your own resources, you are able to manage it significantly very well. Now, when we talk about security, unfortunately for our president, the greatest security threat to Ghana is the issue of Galamsey. Now,
well, I want us to, we will look at the domestic political angle in a bit, but I want us to conclude on the, fallouts from the UN and issues that concern Africa as a bloc. So let me just ask this final question and then we get into Ghana as a whole. So how can we, Ghana, in terms of democracy, leverage our position as a democratic leader in West Africa to support democratic resilience across the region? And you yourself also mentioned all these military takeovers that are surrounding us as a nation. How can we help?
Okay, so we have to have a clear-cut policy. I have tried to look at the various manifestos of the two major parties going forward, and I don't see a clear-cut policy orientation as to how they intend to deal with the military regimes of Mali, of Burkina Faso, and so forth. These are regimes that have virtually gone back on democracy, and therefore, as a country, we must have a template to engage them even beyond ECOWAS and try to see how we can negotiate with them to return civilian rule or help them address their challenges. As Ghana, the surest path to us influencing other countries within the region is to translate the gains in democracy to the well-being of our people. If the Ghanaian citizens become better, it serves us as an attraction for others to choose our path. But if the Ghanaian citizen continues to grow worse, then no country will choose your political system as the best option for itself. And more importantly, as we head towards the next election, we must strive to improve upon electoral administration, all other aspects, judicial administration, and other aspects of our democracy.
Okay.
Now, when we are able to master the art at home, then we can provide lessons for other nations that are struggling with democratic governance. So we have to improve our own institutions here and use it as a template for others who are in need of governance reforms.
So from a domestic political angle then, I mean, the president talks about accountability of public officials and all that. Do you think that government's anti-corruption mechanisms, such as the Special Prosecutor's Office, have lived up to expectations in holding officials accountable? And what can be done to strengthen these institutions? And then we'll talk about Galamsey. I know you want to get there.
The problem with our setup is that we tend to celebrate the passing of laws and the setting up of institutions as an achievement on itself. The truth is that the passing of a particular law, the setting up of a particular institution, is a process that has to lead to an end. But what we have been doing over the years is that when we are confronted with the issues of corruption, the issues of either mismanagement or whatever, we tend to believe that if we can pass a law, the law will virtually address the underlying challenge, but that is not true. The problem Ghana is facing in terms of fighting corruption is about law enforcement. It's about people who should have the moral courage to actually implement what they believe they stand for. Because, mind you, all these laws that we have passed, all these institutions must somehow be run by human beings, and these human beings must have the right moral and moral norms to be able to run this institution. So the only significant improvement that Ghana has made, in my opinion, is the fact that the new educational curriculum that is being brought up have incorporated into the teaching of that curriculum what we call democratic values, in the sense that while we were keen in school for reporting late, children should be given the chance to explain themselves, and those explanations must suffice for the teacher to allow them to learn. Children must be encouraged to always speak the truth. Now, I believe that we don't just have the right cultural mindset to run some of the institutions we believe we are running. So we pass the law and we somehow find loopholes in the same law to undermine the law we pass to fight corruption. If you take one of the biggest problems in the public sector, procurement. Now, so you pass the procurement law, you set up a procurement offices all across all government institutions. I tell you, procurement has become one of the hurdles through which we are actually perpetuating the corruption that we seek to be fighting. So why is it so? Because the mindset, the cultural mindset is not right to run that institution. So I believe that over time, if these educational reforms translate to training people with the right cultural mindset to run this institution, then we'll get somewhere. But currently, we must begin to see Ghana as a collective responsibility, and that office holders must know that somehow their actions and inactions affect everybody. And those of us in civil society, those of us on the street, must begin to put more pressure for people who are doing wrong in the public space to come out of the public space, to face some level of accountability. The culture of resigning is quite strange to Ghanaians. So a lot of wrongs can be done, and the individual perceive that, well, this will be news for some time.
Actually,
and
Doug,
keep on sitting
the
there.
president's or this government's solution, some of the solutions they're proposing to fight corruption, and he touted over there in his last address, he talks about digitalization, removing the human interface in terms of public service institutions, right? Is that not in any way a way to replace, the human interface, where you just said that because of the moral compass of some of the people in these institutions, the fight against corruption is futile?
Yeah,
Digitalization
yes,
solves the problem, does it not? Yeah.
You are digitalizing, but remember, even the systems must be run by men. So, for instance, you set up a system with all the sophistication of IT, And yes, somebody will have to click some button somewhere to allow for certain things to be done. If that person chooses not to click the button, nothing happens. So one of the things I'm saying is that in as much as we have all these systems in place, we somehow create some loophole somewhere that allow us to do what we want to do. Okay. So you see, one of the things about digitalization is that the power of IT can be taken over by interest group to further their own interest, to enhance their own power position. It is not automatic that once you are digitalizing, it translates into something great. One of the things about it is that I can implement an IT project or a digitalization project in a way that gives me more power instead of reducing the power and giving more transparency. And so it's not like once you digitalize, the issue of corruption becomes something of the past. It only somehow gives you the ability to deal with corruption if you have the will, the political will to deal with it.
And there we have, well, there's that phrase again, the political will. It appears every time we talk about all the issues, the incidents of corruption, it comes down to the lack of political will. And while the president emphasized accountability, critics argue that his government has faced many corruption allegations and challenges in ensuring transparency. So how would you assess the government's record on corruption and public accountability in the second term?
Okay, assessing government record on corruption and accountability, I would say that the second term of this government have not been the best. I would score them around 40% for what they have done. In fact, they have done well in terms of setting up institutions, passing laws, and so forth. But when it comes to implementation, somehow the government have been found wanting. Of course, based on the kind of what we call a highly prismatic society that we run, where we bring a lot of informal rules into the formal space, and therefore knowing this person, knowing that person, sometimes make it difficult to enforce the law. So yes, they have done their bit, but they are not where we want them to be. There are so many people still in public office who, under normal circumstances, should be going through some investigation, who should somehow voluntarily resign their position based on some of the issues that have been coming out. So for me, well, they have done their bit. You can't say they have done nothing. They have done the best they can do, their ability can do. And perhaps maybe the next government will give us a template to judge them better. But where I stand, they will score around 40% in terms of the fight against corruption. Well,
thank you for doing that assessment. So in terms of transparency, can we reconcile the posturing of this NPP government in this nearly 8 years of being in office and the utterances or the submissions of the president in terms of transparency and accountability? I'm citing the fight against Galamsey and the posturing of the government on the position, the ongoing brouhaha, or should I say impasse, between the NDC and the Electoral Commission in the build-up to election 2024, and all the other issues where you would expect that the president or this government will take a stronger stance to ensure or inspire confidence in the people. Do you think that we can reconcile the submission of the president at the just ended, at his last address to the UN Security Council, and what we actually experiencing locally here in Ghana?
So yes, as I said, his address to the UN is diplomatic engagement and opportunity to sell Ghana. So you don't expect him to draw so much on the negative. He has to market his country. He has to show the world the good about Ghana. So he did an excellent job in marketing Ghana.
So would you say then that the reality he's selling to the UN is far different from what we're experiencing in the country?
No country sells the whole reality anyway.
Okay.
No country sells the whole reality. I mean, you have to pick and choose what you are going to sell. There are poor people in London, but they show you the tall buildings. It's for a reason. So yeah, having said that, as I said, it's diplomatically apt. But when we come to the ground, then the other side, there are contradictions, as it were. We're talking about transparency, and yet we are unable to fight a canker like Galamsey because political persons are involved. We are unable to deal with a threat to the very survival of the nation. Now, you see, when we talk about Galamsey, perhaps those of us who sit far, who don't visit the sites, we are taking it to mean it's one of those problems that Ghanaians will talk and talk. Now, it will come to a point when they are talking, and action is not. These issues are naturally progressing from bad to worse. So there's a stage at which you have to act. If you fail to act at that stage and it gets worse, you can't do anything. You can't do anything about it. So as you are having your major water bodies that supply water to your towns and cities and villages being polluted, people are giving birth to deformed babies, and virtually there is no clean water for your population, then you realize that the economic progress we are chasing that leading to Galamsey will not come. It will be undermined. So in as much as we're talking about transparency, where we are talking about accountability, the place that this should be tested in the fight against Galamsey, where allegedly officialdom has been involved. So you see that contradiction talking about security, global security. Well, a basic security issue in Ghana. This is a fundamental threat to the existence of the Ghanaian. This is an existential threat that must be dealt with. Now, the way we are going about the Galamsey, as if it's one of the normal problems that will go away anytime soon, it must take a coordinated action to deal with. And how do you deal with an issue like this where it has become the basis for sometimes funding of political parties? For some time, some groups have pondered the idea of public funding of political parties. As it is now, the way we fund political parties in this nation make issues like Galamsey very, very difficult to resolve. The way we have structured our politics make the issues like Galamsey very difficult to resolve. Because if you look at the political terrain, now you have 4 years to implement a particular mandate. And therefore, you are looking for quick fix money here and there to kind of fix it. And so those who bring the money, either it's Galamsey or whatever money it is, you hardly care. So in terms of winning the election, these people have become very relevant. They have become a great constituency influence political leaders, either NDC or MPP. They will be very strong and influence what they do. Now, so you have to reset what you do. Either you consider public funding of political party, make the political funding regime more clearer for all of us to know who is donating what, for what people. Then we will be able to deal with some of these issues. And again, fundamentally, the type of economy you are running make issues like Galamsey very difficult to deal with. In fact, you are running gold for oil. You are running this based on the ability to extract gold from the ground. Since we adopted the structural adjustment programs, we have resulted in an unrelenting exploration of the environment to finance ourselves. The environment has limits, and this is the limit we are getting to. So unless you change the paradigm you are operating, where you believe that the market can fix every problem, the market doesn't fix every problem. So the state itself, on one hand, is somehow a culprit in promoting the Galamsey, but the very economic policies that we are pushing. So you are opening up your forest reserves for exploration because you needed income to fix problem. Now,
Dr. Hlovor, we have to wrap on this point for me. Yeah.
The problems you are trying to fix will not get fixed. In fact, if you build a hospital from the money you get from opening out a gold reserve for miners to either legal or illegal to go and harvest their gold or mine their gold from there, soon you realize that the number of people who attend that hospital and the expenditure of the hospital outweigh the money you got from it. That is why deliberately across the world, there are reserves that are reserved. No, regardless of the ton and volumes of golds and diamonds that are found under it, nobody issue permit for anybody to mine it. And in Ghana, the language we use.
We have a long way to go. And
we have a long way to go.
Yeah, you said that in terms of the speech that the president delivered, it's a masterclass of diplomatic speeches, and that you also said that no country actually sells the actual reality. So then the question is, has the president elevated Ghana's stature on the international stage with that speech, and what will be the lasting impact of it?
So what he has done is to tell the world that regardless of what you are hearing about Ghana, this is what we have achieved. Somebody may only be consuming bad news
with all these protests all over the country,
yes, all over the place. So then this is an opportunity for the first gentleman to tell the world that, hey, listen, behind that bad news, this is how far we have come. We have done one district, one factory. Perhaps there's somebody out there who is in need of a place to invest. We are still a place to be considered. Now, the point about global politics and diplomacy, yes, every country has a challenge. Every country has something going against it. But when you get this opportunity, it's not the opportunity to lament. It's not the opportunity to dwell on the negative. It's the opportunity to sell your nation. It's the opportunity to communicate in a way that gives other people belief. Of course, they may have news about how bad the economy is and all those things, but at least that you must see to inspire confidence in your global audience. You must give them, yes, of course, we may say that, what about if the person comes here and find out that all that you are saying is wrong? This deception is part of diplomacy, is part of international politics. As the big powers who have reached the top, how do they get there? If you cannot put words together to market what is not marketable, you don't expect anybody to take you serious. That is what it is. And so, for me, where I stand is that he's done a good job. He has told the world that yes, we have challenges, but yes, as a country, we have done so well for ourselves. My presidency has so many challenges, but this is what I've been able to achieve for Ghana, and I'm ready to leave the stage and let another person come. That statement alone diffuses the tensions that the world may have concerning elections in other parts of the world. Of course, we all know that during election years, investors normally play the waiting game. They want to, particularly when it's down to the second term of a sitting president, they know the president will not be there. They want to see who next, even if it is Baumia. He has his own ideas. If it's Mahama, he has his own ideas, so people will be waiting. But the certainty of knowing that the current president is exiting the scene, there's no need for any constitutional amendment here and there to try to prolong his rule, give the international community, foreign investors, and those who are interested in Ghana some level of confidence in this economy, in this our political zone that we call Ghana. So yes, as I said, it gives some international recognition, some international capital to Ghana.
Okay. Dr. Ishmael Kwabla Hlovor, thank you so much. He's an international relations expert and a political analyst. Many thanks for your time. And this ends this belt of conversation, but you know we have a lot more coming your way. Now, the recent arrest of Democracy Hub protesters have sparked widespread condemnation, with CDD Ghana raising concerns about unlawful police tactics and violations of constitutional rights. But is the Ghana Police Service simply upholding its duty to maintain public order? Could the protests have posed more risks than critics are acknowledging? Let's speak to Dr. Michael Augustus Akakbo. He's a Senior Programs Officer, Human Rights and Social Inclusion. Many thanks for your time here on on the AM show. Now, let me begin by asking, while the CDD Ghana condemns the police, could there be a case for the actions if the protests risk public safety or escalated violence? Kindly unmute so we can hear you. Okay, we are trying to reconnect, and then this is a conversation on CDD condemning the abuse of due process. If you can hear me, please unmute, sir.
I have. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. So I was asking, while the CDD may condemn the police actions, could there be a case for their actions if the protests risked public safety or escalated into violence?
Well, the police are meant to do the job they're meant to do to protect public properties and safety and ensure that no citizen, even in the moment of demonstrations or protests, can come to harm. So yes, we agree that all over the world there are mechanisms and measures for how to do crowd control. And when we have a problem with the way the police have acted, is the manner in which they treat your own protesters who decide to exercise their civil and political rights of demonstrations and protests by a more older generation. We could talk of Occupy Ghana, and we see how the police handled or the control of such crowds. What we are finding very interesting is that over the years, these are young kids, and we need to teach them a lesson. Seems to dread. If you look all across our campuses, whenever that demonstration.
Michael, you are breaking up. We can't really hear you. Can you reposition? Dr. Michael, sorry. Can you reposition and let's try again? Dr. Kagbo, can you hear me? I think we've lost him, and we'll try to reconnect and bring you details, because the CDD issued a statement condemning the unlawful arrest and detention, excessive police tactics, violation of constitutional rights, and denial of due process in that statement, and we want to get more clarity on that. And Dr. Michael Augustus Akagbo joins us on phone now for this conversation. Doc, you were in the middle of telling us why, although the protesters were doing their bit peacefully, and something about the police using force. We couldn't hear you well, so let's start again. I was asking that, could it be the case that the police treated the protesters the way they did because the public, and there was a bigger risk of public safety or escalated violence?
Good morning. Can you hear me now?
Yes, this is much better. Thank you.
All right. So I was making the point that yes, the police have a duty to protect all citizens, and even in the moment, in times of demonstration and protest, have a duty to ensure that public safety is assured for members of the society who might not necessarily be part of the demonstration. That we agree that the police has the mandate to ensure that that happens. But what we are increasingly worried about is how the police seems to be treating young protesters, especially the youth, when they go on demonstrations. And our position is that if you look across the country from years back, even on our campuses, if you see how when young people are protesting, the police handle them, the way they handle them, it causes for alarm. There seems to be a discriminatory component to how the police deal with young people. I feel like the police go out to engage young protesters with the mindset of teaching them a lesson. And the manhandlingness of how they deal with them shows that they have no regard for the rights of these citizens, of these young people who are basically just exercising their civil and political rights.
So the key issues that CDD has raised in this statement, aside condemning police tactics and all, is unlawful detention, you say. But some of these protesters who were remanded have actually been granted bail and released, and they are still in the process of securing bail for the remaining 11. So what is the bone of contention here?
Well, I mean, our problem is that it's not so much about the fact that they have been granted bail and they now are able to secure bail and leave the police stations. But more importantly, why do we even arrest citizens who are out there exercising their constitutional right to protest? So why do we need to arrest young people just because they are angry at the way the country is being run, and they are expressing their anger through a peaceful demonstration, which is constitutionally guaranteed? So the whole component of arrest itself is a violation of the rights of the citizens. So we don't think that the way the police handle protests is the appropriate way to handle these protests. You deprive people of their liberties and their freedoms when you put them in prison, when you arrest them. You curtail their rights and their freedoms. And we have a big issue with that.
Dr. Akagbo, there are two sides to the story. The story of protesters storming the streets to register displeasure, and the police service doing their bit to ensure that the public safety comes first. You've spoken about the rights of these people. We had issues or reports about people not giving medical attention. The police came out with a statement saying that that was false information. And the person in question, Oliver Bakavomawo, was said to be in need of medical attention and ignored. But the police said that he was in the hospital, at the police hospital. So the question I'm asking you is, could it be that the delay in releasing these detainees could be a part of a thorough police investigation to ensure no wrongdoers went unpunished? Because, in fact, the protesters instigated violence. As you can see on your screens right now, there was a gentleman who is going at it with the police. We even saw Oliver Bakavomawo demobilizing a police vehicle. So could it be that the delay is simply it's not mere, but is a case of investigation so that the police can have clarity on what happened, so that perpetrators can be brought to book? Again, we are in a very politically charged climate. The police needs to send out a statement that they're in control of our affairs. What's your argument?
Well, I think you make a valid point in terms of when crimes are committed during protests or demonstrations. And that is exactly why we have the police there, to ensure that these protests and demonstrations do not roll over into place of into unlawful acts. So yes, in spaces where it can be determined that an individual had actually committed a crime in the process, the laws may be able to deal with that individual in the way it is supposed to do. And we do agree, we do accept that. But there are narratives of ordinary bypassers who were arrested for being in that space. What crimes did they commit, and for what reason did they have to be in cells for 48 hours? Or what crimes did what did they do for them to lose their rights and their liberty? So we are not saying that the police should not do its due diligence in ensuring that the right things are done. But this is a protest. This is a demonstration. In terms of access to healthcare, yes, we heard Oliver has gotten some attention at the hospital. But the point we're making is that the police needs to find out a better way of dealing with protests.
Okay.
This way of engagement that the police have with citizens when they go on demonstration, we are saying it's not the right way. The police seems to forget that they are also members of the very community that these citizens belong to.
Okay.
And these issues that the protesters are out there are issues of national concern to all of us. So we need to be able to understand that the police is not there. We need to have this understanding. The police is not there to protect the powerful. The police is there for the protection of citizens against abuse by the state or state actors. So this whole mindset that when people are on demonstration, the police have to come to protect the interests of a certain class of people, we need to move from that mentality to a community-based way of policing.
You said the police has a mentality to protect a certain class of people. Which class of people are you referring to?
Well, we do understand that most often there's this mindset to protect powerful people. The narrative is going around. I haven't validated that, but the narrative is going around that certain decisions were made to hold people in cells based on some orders. I haven't validated that, but we need to have those validations. Okay. But the point is that it is not in the interest of the police to stop citizens from expressing their civil and political rights of dissent.
Dr. Akagbo, beyond the statements that you've released, what else is the CDD doing to ensure that the rights of these people you speak of are actually they're doing the right thing to them? The Ghana Police Service is treating them fairly. What else is the CDD doing apart from the statement?
Well, we're continuously engaging with all stakeholders, including the police and including with the populations who go on this engagement. And it is our wish that we could find a middle ground where these protests can take place without no intimidation by the security forces. Our democracy guarantees us that right. The Constitution provides us this beautiful mechanism to express our dislike for what we might not like or when things are not going right within the state. So these mechanisms need to be protected. These are ways for us to bubble out of the frustration that people might be holding in themselves. So these mechanisms are very important to the survival of our democracy, and we need to protect it. We don't need to start criminalizing. We don't need to start, in a way, using the law as a way to suppress the rights of people to express their anger when they do not like how things are going in the country.
Thank you so much, Dr. Michael Augustus Akagbo. He's Senior Programs Officer and Human Rights and Social Inclusion with the Center for Democratic Development. Many thanks for your time. Right, we'll take a quick break and we'll return with more. We still have that conversation on the ECG boss resigning and that presidential candidate on what his aspirations or vision is for the country. We'll be right back. We are your election headquarters, and as election 2024 draws near, Dr. Daniel Augustus Lartey Jr., presidential candidate of the GCPP, sits down with me this morning to discuss his vision for Ghana. From addressing economic challenges to restoring local industries, he shares how his party's domestication policy could transform the nation. So let's discuss this. Thank you so much for joining us for this conversation, Doctor. You are welcome. Can I just call you Dr. Lartey?
Of course you can, yeah.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Great. Dr. Lartey, before we get into your policies and vision for the country, I want you to tell me what your assessment of the state of affairs in the build-up to election 2024. How do you think we're faring as a nation?
I think that we're doing quite well because at the end of the day, we know that the Electoral Commission is there to make sure that democracy prevails. And so at the back of that, I cannot see anything that should go wrong. The Electoral Commission has got its ways of doing the checks and balances to make sure that everything goes smoothly. So from where I'm sitting, I think it's pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah.
How long have you nursed this presidential ambition?
How long have I had it?
Yeah.
How long is a piece of string? Since
2000 or way further than that?
Yeah, because the thing is, as some of you would know, my father is the late Dan Lartey, who's at domestication. So I've been in this political era for a very, very long time, since I was this age. And most people say that you can run around and do what you want to do, but eventually it happens that what your father did, you end up doing. I've lived in England for about 40 years. I've got my kids in England. I'm a qualified financial consultant, an international financial consultant. I'm a global merchandiser. My CV precedes me when I have to bring top investors into the country to help us build a prosperous and a better Ghana.
And you are affectionately called Dan Lartey.
Yes.
Which is good. Now, the GCPP has long promoted the domestication policy as a way to revitalize Ghana's economy. Is this your overarching vision for Ghana? And elaborate more on this.
Yeah. Sorry. My vision for Ghana is to make sure that we are self-reliant, which is terribly important for everything that we do. If we can't rely on ourselves, we can't feed ourselves, we can't buy our own, industry and our own products that we produce, then we are, we are in trouble. So my leadership with the GCPP is to make sure that we are self-reliant. We grow what we eat and we eat what we grow. Because at the end of the day, no one is going to do that for us if we don't do it. And if you don't help yourself, nobody helps you. And
grow what we eat and eat what we grow. Yeah. We've seen so many policies in the past. We've seen so many policies in the past that seek to promote this Eat Ghana, Grow Ghana, agenda. What are you going to do differently to make it sustainable? Because it looks as if we start for a bit and then it just ends somewhere. Yeah. So what are you proposing that you're going to do differently?
Right. Now, what I'm proposing is, because, we've neglected the youth for a very, very long time. And I have to be 100% with you. I'm with the youth. And I'm going to make sure that the youth are employed. And the best way to start employment is to do it through farming. Because I quite remember when I was little, I mean, you know, my father was head of government business when Achampon was in power. And it was the first time that they had this concept of Operation Feed Yourself. And this Operation Feed Yourself leads us to domestication. That's why the old man started using the word domestication, and not many people understood it. They thought it was just something that he was saying. But this is a man who has done it and tested it. And it was the first time in those times, in the 70s, that Ghana exported maize. Can you believe it? And since then, we've done nothing. And since my father left, I mean, the government at the time, nothing has happened. But he spearheaded Operation Feed Yourself. We were self-reliant. He spearheaded, I mean, Dansuma Estate. So if he can do it, we can do it. And if we can do it, I can do it, because we have the resources.
Okay. You said in the next week or so, you'll be launching your manifesto.
That's correct, yeah.
A document that contains all your vision and promises for the country.
Yeah.
But I really want to get very clear understanding of how you intend to turn Ghana's economy around with domestication. So I like that you said, eat what you grow, grow what you eat. If you were voted into power, let's say at the end of this year, in the elections, in the first 100 days as president, how are you strategically going to turn our country's fortunes around by or using this domestication policy? What specifically are you going to do?
What specifically, I mean, are we going to do? Now, you know, Rome was not built in a day. And so was Europe, because Europe, as we see them, did not develop by whims or caprices. They farmed. They did farm. They did serious farming, and it was hard work. And we know that it's hard work. And I'm sure the youth also knows that it's hard work. And we will start with farming. And you know that I mean, when you do the farming properly, you know that every 3 months there's a produce that comes out. So these produce you can have, I mean, you can eat some and you can sell some. Those you can't sell, I mean, my government will have cold stores that will buy it from you. And then we can export and get foreign currency. I like to keep it very simple, because I know people like to use jargons and stuff like that, but I mean, you know, it's not necessary. The best thing to do is, how do we solve our problem? And if we can't feed ourselves, there's no way we can solve our problems. There's no way we can solve our problems. Ghana cannot solve its problems without not feeding itself.
We have the Planting for Food and Jobs, One District, One Factory, and some other initiatives and policies that seek to address the same issue about agriculture and, you know, being the bane or backbone of a thriving economy, and how we can also tap into that to thrive as a nation. What would be your plan for these already existing policies and initiatives? And then, this is my final bit, and then what are you doing differently? How are you tweaking them? You say you are going to, you know, start from farming, agriculture, but what are you doing? Are you going to say that you provide funding for a group of young people to start farming? Are you going to complete or ensure that the places where there are challenges with the implementation of the One District, One Factory and One Planting for Food and Jobs, the challenges, are you going to be fixing them? I just want actionable steps on what you want to do, maybe just 3, and then we can move on to other issues. So, for example, in your first 100 days in office, what actionable steps? And you've said great things about farming and agriculture, planting what we want to eat and all that. And if your produce, you have more than you need, you have someone come in, states will buy it from you for export. So that's one. I want to take that as one. So you buy from farmers for export purposes. And then what? Right.
Now, what we're going to do is we're going to encourage the peasant farmers currently, because they're doing so well. Because without them, we will even be buying more tomato from Burkina Faso and onions from all over the place. But these peasant farmers have worked so hard, and I think that we will follow how they farm, because they are traditional farmers. And then the youth will come in, because the youth are unemployed. There's so many of them unemployed. So to boost the economy, we will encourage the youth. And we've got finance behind us. We've got investors from the US. We've got investors from Poland. We've got investors from Ukraine who are coming into the country to, to help us. I mean, I meet with the CEOs of, GIPC. His Excellency Michael Quay at Ghana Fusions with investors who have come into town to help us build our country, because farming is, to me, is the beat and everything. Because if you can't feed yourself, sweetie, if you can't feed yourself, how can you then say that you're going to develop? You have to develop, but we need the youth to come with us. Because the youth has been, I wouldn't say that, but they've been left behind for quite a long time, and there's so many of them have no jobs. I drive in town and you see them walking around. I was in Osu ShopRite the other day, and I saw these guys say, oh, I want to park here. So I got out of the car and I called them, about 10 of them. I said, look, I'm going to get you a job. We're going to do farming. He said, please, let's do it. So if at that age they want to do it, why? Why are we sitting back and then being partisan about certain things that are not necessary? We need to get the youth into employment. And through that, I think that, we'll be on a sound footing. Trust me, I believe in the youth.
Okay. So, Danladi, corruption has been a persistent issue in Ghana, affecting public trust, service delivery, in fact, every aspect of the country.
Right.
The two major political parties have been clear on how they intend to tackle it. What are your plans to strengthen anti-corruption institutions and ensure greater transparency in government?
That's a good question. I like that. And I'm enjoying this now.
Okay. I'm glad you are.
But who determines what corruption is?
Who determines what corruption is?
Who determines what corruption is? You see, because you can say, oh, this person is corrupt. But who determines it? You see, because if we look at the negative aspect of things, when we look at, oh, you are corrupt, we're not going to go anywhere. Let's move this country forward. Let's stop, pointing fingers at people that you are corrupt and look, corruption, didn't start today. If you even go into the Bible, they've been corrupt a long time ago. But I believe that let's use our energies, let's be positive and not start saying you are corrupt, and let's harness our energies to improve this country by seriously farming. We can, look, Europe did not develop by wind or by caprices.
Just a second there.
Yeah.
So, like I started saying, corruption has been a big issue in this country.
Yeah.
We've seen incidences of corruption or corruption-related incidences, which influenced the formation of the Office of the Special Prosecutor to tackle some of these issues. There are many issues in this country that you realize that our monies have been used for things that cannot be, defended or explained to our understanding.
Yeah.
You and I know what corruption is. Using public office to gain undue favor.
Okay.
And so on and so forth. Which, when you follow some of the stories and the incidences, it tells you that, or it shows you, paints a picture, that we are making money in this country, or we have the means to make money in this country, but it's slowly seeping into the individual pockets of political actors and people in power, in high position. That is a challenge. So we cannot say that we should stop pointing accusing fingers at each other and say, this is who is more corrupt than me, like you're saying. We cannot also say that we will forget about it and focus on farming. The issue of corruption is not negligible. So how do you, as a presidential aspirant, intend to deal with it? Because it is a canker eating at the very fiber of this country in terms of our democratic development. How would you tackle corruption?
Right. Now, let me come back again to say that, who determines corruption? But then again, also, I understand where you're coming from and understand all the points that you're giving. But yes, how do we know that this person is taking government's money to do something? Have we got evidence of those bits? If we have evidence of those bits, then the laws will deal with it. But I think that there's so much speculation also. Because, look, someone can see and might think that, oh, yeah, it's also pilfering, but you're not. So what I'm saying is, I think that we should focus our energies on trying to fix this country than, going about corruption, because yes, there might be, I'm not saying there is, there might be corruption, but how factual is it?
Are you saying how factual is it?
Yeah, because the thing is, how factual is it? Because there's a lot of hearsay.
Did you know about the PDS scandal, the Ejapa royalty scandal, the cash for seats scandal, the Jida scandal? In fact, let me just go ahead of myself and add the Cecilia Dapa case, the judicial bribery scandal. So many issues in this country.
Yeah.
If you ask how factual it's almost as if saying that we didn't even need the Office of the Special Prosecutor in the first place.
No, because we've got, that office to verify, make sure that, all these cases are true. If it's true, then measures should be taken about it.
Are you saying that corruption is not as serious as Ghanaians take it?
Well, you say because corruption is, it's been going on for centuries. But what I'm saying is, I'm not saying that there's no corruption or there's no corruption anywhere. But why don't we use our energies, as we're dealing with corruption, why don't we use our energies, the most important thing, to fix this country?
So the reason we cannot do that...
the reason that you cannot fix this country is because of the corruption.
No, the reason we cannot ignore corruption and focus our energy on fixing the country is because it feeds back into how effective we can be as a nation.
Right. Okay,
so, for example, government collects taxes from citizens.
Yeah.
The revenue generated is supposed to be used for developmental projects to ensure that the citizens, our livelihoods, even though if it's not the easiest, at least we understand that we're working towards something, right? And then you wake up and find out that the monies that you are contributing to the development of this country is sitting in someone's pocket, or they're digging a pit somewhere. Let me just cite the National Cathedral because I don't understand how so much money is gone into that swimming pool we're seeing. And you wake up and you realize that you are doing your bit as a citizen. You're going to school, you're getting a job, you're paying your taxes, and the money is not actually going to where it's supposed to go.
Yeah.
We get foreign investment in various sectors of this country. You can talk about road development. We get foreign aid every now and then.
Yeah.
In fact, let me not go far. We are still under IMF. After 11 months, the government is saying that they are confident that they will meet all their targets for the third assessment. In fact, there's a team in town so that we can get the next, tranche of money that we need. If we are not seeing where the money is going as citizens, and we see how we are growing leaner by day, I don't mean that literally, but political actors and government officials are just bloating up in front of us. How do we get the sanity of mind to still go about our day-to-day activities and say that, it's okay, it's negligible, I can still pay taxes? If you go to work as a public official and you know that... I'm sorry.
I'm listening.
Yeah, I was a bit surprised that you're saying that corruption is not as serious as it should be.
No, I'm not saying it's not as serious.
And then you find out that as a government official, someone comes to you, is asking you for a service. You know how we even do it, not even politicians. Instead of 500 cedis, they'll tell you 1,000 cedis because at the end of the day, they want to put some money in their pocket. And this is because the systems don't work.
When it comes to that, I do agree with you because, you see, the moral behind that, you say, is because we're not self-reliant enough. You see, because if we're self-reliant enough, and if we're doing the right things, like, and I keep going back to the domestication concept of farming. You see, when you are satisfied, there are certain things that you take care of. But when you're very hungry, you're an angry man. Okay.
So the Electoral Commission has been a subject of, should I call it controversy, issues, because the NDC is saying that, and not just the NDC, just this morning I read that the ARC, Alliance for Revolutionary Change, and some other parties and independent candidates are also backing the call for a forensic audit into the provisional voters register. How confident are you in the Electoral Commission, and where do you stand in terms of the ongoing issues with the Electoral Commission?
Well, we all know that the Electoral Commission is an independent entity. And so when it comes to elections, they have to do what's right. They have to determine what should, who becomes a flag bearer. You know, because the processes that you have to go through. I know that most people are, most people are talking about the electoral roll and so on, and bits and pieces like that. But I think that, and I trust that the Electoral Commission will not do anything out of context to jeopardize the democracy of this country. That is my belief. I don't think it's going to do anything to jeopardize this country. And I don't think that it will do anything that will affect either the NDC or the MPP or any other political party. It's there to make sure that there's integrity, there's respect, and there's democracy. So on that note, that's how I see the Electoral Commission. So
whether or not there's an audit, independent forensic audit into the voters register, you believe and trust that the EC is well and is well equipped, the integrity is not a problem, and they can deliver free, fair elections. Well equipped,
and whatever comes out of that, I'm sure that they will address it.
Okay, let's talk about Galamsey, and this is my final bit to you. We are pressed for time. We've seen CSOs, religious bodies, individuals, political stalwarts, all say that let's take a break from small-scale mining, illegal mining activities, because it's damaging our water bodies.
Yeah.
Ghana Water Company Limited is feeling the pinch. They say they are unable to supply the 70%, which was already a deficit. We're all the way back down to 30 or 40, I think, because of Galamsey.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the fight against Galamsey and where we are now?
Galamsey, I mean, my very good friend, Canon Dr. Lawrence Tete, went absolutely berserk on everybody over the weekend about Galamsey and illegal mining. Galamsey, to me, I think it's a fever in a way, and we have to try and cure the fever. But we cannot cure the fever if we keep saying that, oh, Galamsey or illegal mining. We have to let them know that there's another option that the GCPP, under my leadership, will bring to the table. We are going to make sure that farming becomes fashionable again, so they can compare the farming side with this Galamsey.
Cocoa farmers are giving up their farms so that illegal miners can dig and get some gold.
Yeah.
You're saying farming will solve this problem?
It's education. If these farmers are educated properly. Now, we're going to enhance our youth to be educated properly, so they understand the difference between this Galamsey, between the gold, because you see, farming and gold is what keeps this country going anyway. Right, so now if one is going to destroy the other, you need to educate the population, you need to educate the youth, because the youth are going to take over from us.
Okay.
We'll be gone.
What would be your final word in about 30 seconds, because we have to go?
My final word is that the GCPP, under my leadership, is not going to be partisan. We're going to put everybody together. I think we're all Ghanaians, and we want a better Ghana for everybody. We want Ghana to be the most beautiful place to come. We want to have enough food to eat. We want to be generous. And I think Ghanaians are generous, and Ghanaians are helpful. So please, all political parties, let's hold our hands. Let's move forward. Let's domesticate the youth. Let's grow what we eat and eat what we grow. Farming is the ultimate.
And that there is Dr. Daniel Augustus Lartey Jr., a.k.a. Dan Lartey, presidential candidate for the Great Consolidation Party. Consolidated Party. Thank you so much, political party. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Okay.
And we hope to meet again.
Sure. Let's take a break now. We'll return with more on the AM show. You're still watching the AM show. And now let's pivot into other things. Let's talk about the Ghana Digital Innovation Week 2024, and it's back. And this year's theme is Innovate Together, Collaborating for Digital Transformation and Impact. And it promises to inspire groundbreaking ideas. Now, with regional programs leading up to the main event, the focus is on driving digital transformation across the nation. And as the excitement builds, we explore how this initiative is shaping Ghana's digital landscape and what participants can expect from top industry experts. Let's get into the conversation. In the studio with me this morning is Doreen Aglago-Kofi. She's a technical advisor at GIZ. We also have David Oforin. He's Director of Innovation, National Entrepreneurship and Innovation Program, NEIP. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me first start by asking you to give us a brief overview, David. David, I was right. Okay. On this digital transformation agenda that you're spearheading, what is it all about?
Right, okay. As a country, we cannot be left out in the fourth industrial revolution. And what is it about? Everything we see is moving digital, even how we consume government services. So we cannot leave out our citizens and just think that it's just being championed in the urban areas or in the capital. And so the GDIW, or the Ghana Digital Innovation Week, is giving a sharp focus to these conversations that will drive that. We're looking at it from nationwide. A lot of times, activities just happen in Accra, and we think that Ghana is just Accra.
Yeah.
But it's not. And fortunately, some of us have been around the country, and it would amaze you the kind of things that, the conversations that takes place there. So we are now amplifying these voices, making sure that we have the relevant voices in the room, stakeholders like the policymakers, the beneficiaries, students, academia, industry players, media. All of us are part of the digital transformation agenda. How do we achieve our digital economy? People have to be digitally literate. People have to have access. People have to be able to afford the infrastructure that underpins the digital transformation.
And I think it's great because we are in the fourth industrial revolution, and what you're doing actually feeds into our development trajectory. So Doreen, who is the team behind this beautiful event?
Yeah. So let me take the chance to say a good morning to our audience and to everyone.
Very
here.
pretty.
Thank you so much, yourself as well. So GDIW actually started off as what we call a trilateral cooperation between three governments. Talking about the government of Germany, Israel, and then Ghana. And the idea was that comparatively, the two governments were advanced, and so we're looking at ways that we could support Ghana to also better advance in that space as well. And the beautiful part is that what started as three governments has expanded to include even more development partners. So as I speak to you now, we have UN agencies such as UNCDF, UNDP, ITC, we have FCDO, we have RISA, we have MEST Africa, we have on the government side, of course, we have NEIP, David here himself, as well as MOCD and MEST being the champion ministries. But this year, the beautiful part is that we have three institutions coming together to form a consortium to organize this year's GDIW. And it's part of a journey that we've been
And these
embarking
institutions,
on.
GIZ, who and who?
So I was going to get into that.
Okay.
It's part of a journey that we have been embarking on for the past 3 years. The German government, together with other governments, have supported the journey so far, but we also need to own it as a country. And so we are very happy to now have three institutions. We have NEIP, David seated here today. We also have Impact Invest in Ghana, and then we have Ghana Hubs Network bringing in their support on the regional side as well.
Okay, that's beautiful. So is this the fourth time you're doing this?
This is
the fourth time. So what's the X factor? What's that key takeaway that participants should look forward to when they attend this event?
Well, each year, I mean, GDIW each year surprises us. For those of us who have been part of the journey from day one, every year it comes out with a bang. Every year we see, and it points out to the limitless ingenuity of Ghanaians. People are innovating, people are coming up with great thinking, and people are really, really doing things in various nooks and crannies. Just that the GDIW brings a platform for them to now say, look, this is what we're doing. This is who we are here. Hey, look at us. And so the X factor I would say you have to be there to see that.
Oh, but I wanted to paint a picture of it. I'm already seeing that. I think we'll put it back on your screens. We've seen the people who will be speaking to you. I see Charles, is that Abani? That is the UN, yeah. Okay, so star-studded panelists, and we'll get into it in a bit. But what does a day look like? Come on the 2nd to 4th of October 2024, which is 2 days.
It's
what
3
does,
days, actually.
3 days, so 2nd, 3rd, and 4th.
Exactly.
What does these 3 days look like? I know you're going to have in panel discussions. Just walk us through some of the things, events or activities that we should be looking forward to.
So we designed the events in a way that there's something for everyone that attends. Example, we are here today because of digital. So media actually plays a part in the whole journey, for example. And so there's something for the people across different sectors. We're having sessions across gaming, sessions across policy, we have media, we have even fashion, you know, like now we even have digital fashion, you know that.
Yes,
so,
I've seen runways done with digital well, it's
AI
not in real life. AI.
Yeah, there's a lot of changes coming up. So for us, the idea is that every single person that contributes towards the digital conversation needs to have a feel of the event. We usually start off with a grand formal opening. That is where we have our speakers coming on stage to speak. So we have ministers from Ghana that contribute towards the innovation and digital sectors of Ghana. But we also have other people as well. We have the the Teletel CEO delivering a keynote speech during the event, as well as a lot of dignitaries coming on board to speak as well. We normally will also end with a closing ceremony to wrap up and summarize the key takeaways from the 3-day event. But in between the two, we have a lot of sessions people can take part in. Typically, it's an hour session where you go in there, learn something from that session. We have experts that come to speak to you. Then you go back with your key takeaway. But aside that, we also do have exhibitions that you can also come see some of the innovations that people have brought up in Ghana as well. I'm sure David will talk about the high school students and some other.
Yes, I'm interested in that.
Yeah, I mean, what has become a key feature of GDIW is the involvement of students. A lot of times we leave the conversation a bit late when we're looking at people in tertiary level or leaving school and they say, well, what do I do with my life? But now we're taking it right down to guys in high school to say, look, because Ghana, we're focusing on STEM. And the real proof in the pudding is how people innovate. Because you can have all the learning and all the knowledge, but you have to be able to practicalize it so that as a country, we move away from being consumers of other people's innovation, but rather also developing ours to solve our own local challenges and even export our innovation. So students are doing wild things in high schools, and last year they showcased wonderful innovations, and this year they'll be there too. And these are SHS students innovating with their own free thinking, free mind, and showing that indeed Ghana has a future.
And whatever they produce would be exhibited at the events grounds for the 3 days.
And the objective is that, at least with hope going forward, because we're bringing all the stakeholders in the same room, there will be business people who say, look, I think I can make a business out of this.
So they can commercialize their designs and everything that they come up with.
Because
so
that's where we build the job creators and not job seekers.
Yes. So for our audience who are eager to participate in this, how can they register? How much does it cost to attend? Give us the details of that, Doreen.
And again, that's the beautiful part about GDIW, because attendance is absolutely free.
You don't say.
Absolutely.
Okay, tell me more.
So you only have to go online to register www.gdiw.com.gh.
Please take that again, slower.
So it's www.gdiw.com.gh.
Okay.
You register and bingo, you're good to go.
So you don't pay anything?
Nothing.
You just register for free and you can
attend.
Okay, so who can attend?
All Ghanaians, because it's for all of us. I mean, the digital transformation agenda is not for a section of people. We're carrying all of us along. And we want, whether you're a 90-year-old or whether you're a 16-year-old, we want all of us to be there because it matters to all of us and we all have to be part of it. So we all have to win together. That's why it's for all Ghanaians.
Daniel, if someone was still sitting on the fence, whether or not to attend this beautiful, fantastic initiative program event for 3 days, what would you say to the person? I'll give you a minute to speak directly to our audience and invite them.
Right. People of Ghana, I think that it's the best time. It's the best time to be a Ghanaian, and it's the best time to be alive. So at all costs, don't lose your life, be alive. And be at GDIW, the Ghana Digital Innovation Week, because it's a platform where you'd find all the different facets that come together. It's a unique place to find all of that, because a lot of times you may meet part of the agencies or institutions that matter, or people who are innovating, you may see them in their own corners. But it's only GDIW that you have all of them in one location, and we're having pertinent national discussions, pertinent national conversations, positive vibes, and so I would want to entreat everybody to be there.
Doreen, what would you add to that?
I just want to add that it's from the 2nd to 4th of October. That's next week, Wednesday to Friday. And it's happening from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. each day. All roads lead to the Accra International Conference Center from the 2nd to 4th October. You definitely don't want to miss it, because if you miss it this year, you have to wait till next year to participate. Absolutely. So
don't miss it.
Don't miss at all.
Before we go, though, I want you to give me some testimonials or success stories. This is the 4th time you're doing this. There must be some highlights for you, something that blew your mind, which was a result or the benefits of attending or putting together an event like this. So what success story can you share with us just to drum home the significance of this event?
Right. I mean, if you realize, I mean, 10 years back, I mean, or 5 years back, there's a buzzword called ecosystem. And when it comes to digital innovation, we didn't have a vibrant ecosystem as we have it now. GDIW have provided a platform which has amplified it. So when we talk about the consortium partners, the Ghana Hubs Network, in Ghana we have about 125 hubs. And these hubs are like what we used to call them internet cafes. And startups or innovators have very conducive and comfortable places to go and get nurtured and all of that. So GDIW gives you that conveyor belt to say, okay, once I've had this tutelage and all of that, where do I now need to have the conversations that I can take my innovation to the next step? And this is some of the stories. And there have been a number of innovations and businesses that have been created through this initiative. And so I would want people to be there. When you talk about e-mobility, for instance, now, you know, we have electric bikes and electric cars and all of that. All these conversations takes place at GDIW.
And maybe to add on to that, the impact has been a lot, but for me, 3 of them are the 3 key things that I have taken away so far. The first one is the fact that a lot of these events, people feel the need to come to Accra to participate in it. But what we do is that the event is Ghana Digital Innovation Week. And so we take the event to people in other regions as well. They don't need to feel the need to travel to Accra to participate. This year, we took the event to 6 regions in Ghana, and the goal is eventually centralized to all the 16 regions in Ghana. So this year we had Kumasi, we had Wa, we had Koforidua, we had Tamale, we had Techiman, and we had Takrady. Events physically there to them, you know. And apart from that, we've also had some people that we've interacted with after the program, businesses I'm talking about, and they were able to initiate investor conversations during the event and went ahead to raise funding from these investors. So this is
now that's a story I like to hear.
Yeah, some of the impacts that we are carving out of GDIW. And even though we are organizing this in Ghana, we also do have some participants that come from different countries. Now the impact out of that is the fact that they go back trying to design and implement things like this in their countries as well, because they see the impact when it comes to Ghana and they feel it's good for their ecosystems as well. So the impacts are actually, if I want to talk about it, we won't go today. It's just to let people know that there's a lot for you to derive and get out of this year's event and make it a point to be there.
So just to remind you that it's happening from the 2nd to the 4th of October 2024 at the Accra International Conference Center, and registration is absolutely free. You don't have to pay anything. You just go on to www.gdiw.com.gh/participate and you can register and secure your spot to attend. You must be curious to know how you fit into this 4th industrial revolution. And in the studio with me, who joined me for this conversation, Doreen Aglago-Kofi. She's a technical advisor at GIZ, and David Ofori, Director of Innovation, National Entrepreneurship and Innovation Program. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much, and I wish you the very best with this event.
Thank you for having us, and we wish to see you there too.
Thank you. Oh, yes. I'll pass through.
Everyone has to be there.
I'll drag them along, don't worry. So we'll take a break, and we'll return with a little bit more before we wrap up. You're still watching the AM Show. I'll be right back. The December 7th, 2024 is much closer than we think. It feels like just yesterday that we launched 100 days to elections right here on your election headquarters. But it's already 72 days until the general election. And the parliamentary race in the Ebuakwa constituency is intensifying as constituents demand urgent solutions to the lack of clean water, worsened by the ongoing Galamsey, which is the illegal mining activities we're talking about, and the crises. They're also calling for more job opportunities to address the rising youth unemployment. Meanwhile, the NDC and NPP candidates are locked in a heated battle, each claiming to be a better leader for the constituency. In today's constituency lens, we focus on the pressing demands of the voters and what the candidates have to offer. Enjoy.
Street of Chibi, there are a lot of youth who walk down the street and complain about issues such as youth unemployment and others. I have caught up with two gentlemen here who are also going to share with us their concerns they expect the politicians to address in the lead up to the 2024 elections. So I have with me Christopher, who is on my right. So what are your issues?
Well, there are many issues at hand now, but I only just on three. Okay. What are we expecting any of the government that will come into power to do is I want any government who want to come to the power to be able to make sure that our road networks are very, very good. Okay. They should be able to give us an outline on how they'll be able to change all these issues in their manifestos.
Unemployment is also one of the big issues around here. People graduate and they don't get access to any work to do. They have to go to Galamsey and all that. Then people are chasing them, people are dying. So unemployment also is. And also one concern is about water. We have a very, very bad condition of water. We don't get good access of water to drink, water to cook. So these are my three issues that I want the government to get access to it so that it will solve it for us.
My issue is the unemployment, and poor road network, and then electricity. See, nowadays doing so not too much.
Immediate posting after school. And that's my issue. That when we complete, we want the government to post us immediately so that we don't stay at home without doing nothing.
There are two people vying for the sole seat from the NPP side and also from the NDC side. I'm fortunate to be joined by the aspirant on the ticket of the NPP.
Kingsley is well defined by the constituents as education man. Right from KG1 to P3, you have what we call the Kingsley Readathon. It's a reading series that is done annually. There's nowhere within the 110 polling stations, 24 electoral areas, that you will not find the blueprints of Kingsley engaging socially.
You see, there is a trend in Ghana now that anyone who wants to be a member of parliament or wants to hold in a political office will strategically, a year or 6 months before, start doing some charity works, giving out books, doing health screening for people, sharing food and all those things. And all of a sudden, the person posters appears and start canvassing for votes and all that. But Carlos, I mean, in my own small way, I have been doing a lot for my people. And I don't believe in this flaunting of, because that is not the reason why I do those things.
It is a wrap for the Thursday edition of the AM show. It's your best breakfast show on the block. My name is Sweetie Abochi. You want to stay watching? You want to stay on this channel for Stina Safo as she serves you Joy News Desk. It's bye for now. Mwah.